Ready when you are.
Gentlemen, ready? We are ready. Are they ready? Nancy, ready?
Yep.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the City of Palm Coast City Council Workshop. Today is Tuesday, June the 14th, 2022. It is 9 a.m., and we are in the community wing of City Hall. So with that, if you would all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If the clerk would call the roll, please.
Mayor Alfin.
Present.
Vice Mayor Bronchino.
Right here.
Councilmember Danko.
Here.
Councilmember Finelli.
Present.
Councilmember Clufus. Councilmember Clufus is absent.
Will he be in virtually or no?
I don't believe so.
So we don't need a consensus.
He told us last week he would be.
Right. Just checking. Okay, we'll move on with the agenda this morning to public participation. So in order for city staff to be able to respond to your questions or concerns, please fill out a comment card located near the doorway or any one of our directors in the back. They've done a really good job making sure that every question gets followed up with all of the pertinent, correct, and full information that city staff has available. Public participation shall be held in accordance with Section 286.0114 of the Florida statutes and pursuant to the City Council meetings, policies, and procedures. Each speaker shall at the podium provide their name and may speak for up to 3 minutes. The public may provide comments to the City Council relative to matters not on the agenda at the times indicated on this agenda. Following any comments from the public, there may be discussion by the City Council. When addressing the City Council on specific enumerated agenda items, speakers shall direct all comments to the mayor, make their comments concise and to the point, not speak more than once on the same subject, not by speech or otherwise delay or interrupt the proceedings or the peace of the City Council. Obey the orders of the mayor or the City Council and not make any irrelevant, impertinent, or slanderous comments while addressing the City Council, which pursuant to council rules shall be considered disorderly. Any person who becomes disorderly or who fails to confine his or her comments to the identified subject or business shall be cautioned by the mayor and thereafter must conclude his or her remarks on the subject within the remaining designated time limit. Any speaker failing to comply as cautioned shall be barred from making any additional comments during the meeting and may be removed as necessary for the remainder of the meeting. Before I move on, I want to take a moment to explain the City Council's objectives for having workshops every month. The Council meets in workshops to be well informed of each item, to be brought before the City Council, and to make the best determination on behalf of all city residents. City staff presents detailed information during the workshops and provides a summary background for each item, as well as any additional documents relative to the item. The City Council can then have a meaningful, collaborative, healthy discussion on each item presented. This way, facts and knowledge can be obtained prior to the next business meeting, where City Council then makes the best determination in the interest of the citizens' health, safety, and welfare on each item. As we continue to grow as a collaborative council and follow all council meeting policies and procedures, I will always do my best to make sure that every City Council member has an opportunity to bring forth individual opinions. Our constituents are expecting council to communicate cohesively with civility and to serve our community. The workshops are a valuable tool to present and discuss our individual opinions on behalf of all residents and achieve these objectives. We may not agree with each other, but that is one advantage of the workshops, to evaluate all the information necessary in advance of a decision, a motion, and a vote at our next business meeting. I hope that we will all understand the purpose of these workshops, and I invite all opinions at all times. So with that, I would open up the podium for public comment, and I would ask, is there a speaker that would like to address the City Council at this time? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Silvia Puglisi, and I am mentioning here to the Mayor and Council something which I requested by email before, and I think I mentioned it on in person as well. In 2015, when we didn't have Mayor Alfing, we had another board. It was decided without total lack of communication to the affected residents, the closure of Forest Grove. Forest Grove remains closed. Forest Grove only has houses on the south side. The north side is all a huge vacant land fence. Back then, Forest Grove had accounting of 5,400 cars a day. And when they closed that, all those cars were redirected to Florida Park Drive and some of them to Clubhouse Drive. Because Forest Grove being closed, it is the perfect first turn out of Palm Harbor Parkway to go into Alkins Road. A lot of people were affected in 2015. We were not notified, and it was decided in that meeting under another agenda item. It was not mentioned closure of Forest Grove at all. The street remains closed, and it's a waste for all of us, people in the sanctuary, people in the F section, even myself that I had to go to the school, had to make a big runaround. That street should not have been closed. Was designed by ITT originally to hold the traffic that was holding about that time, 5,400 cars. Now we have the problem of Florida Park Drive that you're trying to resolve, and we appreciate that. But if you reopen Forest Grove, a lot of that traffic will come from Palm Harbor Parkway, Matanzas entrance to 95, and will go into Forest Grove and into the different areas of the F section that now they always have to make a big runaround. So I'm asking you again, please do that. And also, I am asking this council to keep on studying and trying to get a grant or whatever means of money is necessary for our neighbors in the Cimarron area that desperately they need a walkway before a tragedy takes place. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Ed Fuller, Palm Coast. Honorable Mayor Alfin, honorable City Council members, it's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank all the staff and all the employees for doing a tremendous job in our city. We have the best city in the state of Florida, and I want to congratulate everybody. You don't hear it enough, but thank you so much from a grateful citizen. I didn't really want to start this off with this comment, but I will, seeing as how I see the Honorable Sheriff is here. I understand that he has become the president of the Florida Sheriff's Association for the state of Florida. That is a very high honor. We're lucky to have him. I wish we had 66 other sheriffs, but Sheriff, even though you're from the University of Louisville, I do want to wish you congratulations. That's pretty good coming from the University of Louisville. Congratulations, thank you. That said, I'm sure I'll hear that later. I'd like to give a food for topic, maybe perhaps in a next workshop meeting, and that's for The city of Miramar, Florida, which is probably over 150,000, has an ordinance that they require candidates that are running for office, it's part of their qualifying, that they have criminal background checks run on them. And it's been in, I believe it's been a law for over 20 years, and I think it's a good one. Candidates are required to disclose so much of their financial information, and I think this is just part and parcel of it. And what it doesn't preclude anybody from running for office, whatever that background check is. But what it does, it's just transparent. It just gives everybody an idea or indication of their past history. Because you all have a fiduciary responsibility, I think it's something worth looking at. I think it's something that's needed, and it's already in place. We don't have to invent the wheel. It's already on the books. So it may be one of those things, maybe you want to workshop it, or a topic for workshop it, far be it from me to tell this council what to do, but it's a suggestion. I think it would really help the citizens. I think it would help the candidates, because when a criminal background check is run, nobody defines anybody other than that it speaks for itself. No other candidate can say this about this person. The media can't say this about, it just is what it is. But it does not preclude a candidate from running. And I just want you to give it some thought. Thank you so much, and thank you for all you do. God bless you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there another speaker in the audience that would like to speak to City Council at this time? Seeing none, I will close public comment, and we will move directly on and introduce the Honorable Sheriff of Flagler County, Mr. Rick Staley, to make a presentation. And as he's coming to the podium, I would personally like to thank him for the clean sweeping of the streets, I understand.
We're working on it, Mayor.
Working on it. Okay, very good.
Although it was a little muddy yesterday.
We heard.
For our deputies. But before I make my presentation, I would like to correct Mr. Fuller. And as much as I would appreciate that it was the president of the Florida Sheriff Association, I hope to be there in a number of years from now. It's actually the Florida Deputy Sheriff Association I'm the president of. So I would expect nothing less than a UK fan to get that wrong, because there was no pictures in our news release.
Touche. Anyway, welcome this morning, and thank you for coming to make your presentation. We appreciate it.
All right, Mayor and City Council, I appreciate the opportunity to present before you my budget request. And as I go through this, I think you'll see that the men and women of the Sheriff's Office do a phenomenal job for the city of Palm Coast. But I think you'll also see what a great deal you're getting, and I'll explain that shortly. So the priorities for our community since I've been sheriff is to preserve the peace, quality of life, to prevent crime and arrest offenders, and you got a good feel for that yesterday. By the way, Deputy Clay is, I think, back to work today. You can't keep him out. He did get about 6 stitches apprehending that individual, but I think the harassment from his squad is probably worse than the injury. To work together with our community so that our community is one of the safest in the nation. And to that, our crime is down 52.38% since I've been sheriff. We've enhanced technology and developed the Real-Time Crime Center. And I believe in problem-solving partnerships at the neighborhood level, which is guardianship policing, and to deliver law enforcement programs that are designed to meet specific needs in the community, which is why we implemented, when I came in as sheriff, the district concept. So District 1 is the island, if you will. District 2 is your city. District 3 is Western Flagler, because each one of those communities have unique and distinct needs because of the different makeup of those areas. So here's total crime in Flagler County. You can see crime is at an all-time low in Flagler County. Total crashes are up. We still cannot drive anywhere in the county, specifically in the city of Palm Coast, and certainly on our state and road system, which is where most of our fatalities have been occurring. Our calls for service have increased dramatically. You can see, well, we did have a slight lull during 2020 because of the pandemic. For our 911 and non-emergency calls, you can see the 911 calls have increased. And our total calls for service last year were 115,000, and we anticipate they will be almost 118,000 based on the call volume that we are receiving now. If you want to look at the calls for service, the ones in the dark blue, those are all City of Palm Coast Patrol sectors. And we answer out of the 106,000 calls for service, 78,000 were in the City of Palm Coast, which is 73% of our workload. And that's really the workload of our patrol people. It does not include the detectives or undercover units, those kind of support people, and it does not include anything to do with the jail. This is strictly law enforcement, nor does it include anything with the bailiff system and the process of the courts, which do result in arrest of the residents and process serving to residents. I'm sure most of the time they're not happy to see a civil process server knock on their door. That's not included in these numbers. This is just so you get an idea. You do not fund anything in the jail. That is a county and sheriff responsibility. But you can see that our arrests, dipped a little bit during COVID. They're now rising. And if you're curious about the male and female ratio, that's the blue and pink graph next to you, or on the next slide, if you will. And so you can see the arrests are coming back up. Population trends, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Palm Coast is growing, Flagler County is growing, but Palm Coast is growing the fastest. The last time I looked at the numbers for the county overall, Flagler County is the third fastest growing county in the state of Florida, and that information was about a month and a half ago. So it may have changed a little bit, but it's not changing much in there. Believe it or not, Polk County, I believe, is the fastest, followed by St. John's, and then Flagler. So you can see right now you're pushing 100,000 population from what I am hearing from what the estimates are, and that is ahead of schedule. That wasn't supposed to be on until 2025 to reach 100,000 population in the city of Palm Coast. By 2030, estimated to be 109,000. I suspect that these numbers, based on the growth and the building permits that you are approving, that these projections are going to be somewhat outdated, or certainly meet that faster. If you look at the breakdown of law enforcement cost by jurisdiction, you will see that the city of Palm Coast pays significantly less. So the cities are in blue. What the county pays in those counties those cities are located in are in the orange. So the best comparison to the city of Palm Coast is the city of Deltona. You're actually a little bit bigger than the city of Deltona, but the city of Deltona does not have a police department, and they contract with the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. And quite frankly, their contract, they pay full freight, whereas here you have a partnership with the Board of County Commissioners that pays, frankly, the lion's share of a basic law enforcement level of service. Your contract provides for the enhanced level of service for the residents of Palm Coast. So you are very unique, because as I go across the state and I talk to other sheriffs that may serve cities, the counties are not supporting the cities at all. They're paying the full freight. If you look at the number of ratio officers per 1,000 residents, you can see the sheriff's office in 2021 and our total sworn officers in comparison. you know, we did a study that you received previously showing that the sheriff's office in 2018 was 31 deputies deficit, plus would need 51, I believe it was, additional deputies for growth that was anticipated. And that's what this slide reflects. And I want to tell you, thank you, because between the City of Palm Coast and the Board of County Commissioners, of those deficit deputies that were identified in 2018, and this study wasn't done until 2019, okay, all but 3 of those have been hired, okay? So we went from 31 deficit to only 3. What we really haven't worked on is the growth that is occurring here, which is depicted in the gray bar. So the blue bar was, you know, current deputies, the orange bar was the deficit deputies, and then the gray bar was the predicted. So we are predicting in the sheriff's office in 2025 that the deficit deputies will all be wiped out. They will have been hired and funded and authorized. What we'll need to work on is the growth impacted deputies. This is the sheriff's breakdown. You can see that of a $38 million budget, $22 million is in law enforcement, and that includes the deputies that you see. It includes the deputies that you fund. It includes the deputies the Board of County Commissioners fund, detective, the 911 center. It includes basically all your services. Okay. Detention budget is about $8 million for the inmates, and I will tell you that our inmate population is climbing. Not that it impacts you in any budget, because that's not your responsibility, but we're averaging now about 260 inmates per night in the jail. During COVID, we had dropped below, well below 200. Your City of Palm Coast contract currently is $5.7 million. The court operations is just under $1 million. Flagler Schools adds $940,000 for the school resource deputies, of which your contract also provides 1 school resource deputy, and that's a good blended partnership that most counties, you don't see that. So we have a school board, Board of County Commissioners, and City of Palm Coast to staff the schools. And then the other sources are basically grants that we receive throughout the year. Salaries, this is the focus of my Board of County Commissioners budget request is salaries. So when we started this fiscal year, my deputies started at $39,570, okay? If you add the built-in overtime, that got us up to about 43, just a little over 43,000 because of their 12-hour shifts. The problem that's occurring now is that Daytona Beach Police Department's going to $52,000 on October 1. They're going to $48,000 in July 1st. The Florida Highway Patrol starts July 1st at $50,000. That's the highest I've ever seen FHP pay. They have historically been one of the lowest paid agencies in the country, and this year the legislature significantly increased pay for state law enforcement and state corrections. St. Johns County Sheriff's Office is at $50,000 without overtime. If you add in their 12-hour shifts overtime, it pushes them to almost $53,000. Volusia County's at $48,000. And Putnam County is at $46,000, thanks, starting July 1st, because they are considered a financially strapped county, and in the state budget, they get $1.2 million. The Sheriff's Office does of reoccurring money to increase their salaries. And so they're going from below where I was to 46,000 and some change starting July 1. So the focus of my budget with the Board of County Commissioners is some staffing, but it is really salaries, because I'm no longer competitive, and I want to continue to be able to attract the type of employee that we want to serve the community, and I also don't want to be the training ground for other agencies. in the last 18 months, I've lost 20 employees to other agencies. And all of this occurred in the last year to 18 months because I had the highest starting pay 18 months ago. And everybody has just basically squeezed us. So here is the lucky thing for you guys. I know nobody likes additional, to fund me more and so forth. But you have a cap in your contract that says for existing services, so what you have today, the most that I can increase that contract is 5%. We already know inflation's at 8.5, going to 8.6. This year's budget, fuel budget was $2.75 a gallon. We're currently paying $4.30 a gallon from county. And so we're feeling everything that everybody in the community is feeling. Our Florida retirement system rates are up, our health insurance rates are up. Everything that you're dealing with your employees, I'm dealing with also. So the real increase that you should have, except we're capped into the contract, you should really have about a 13% increase to that contract to stay flat. So what's going to frankly have to happen is, assuming that you approve the contract, the 5% will offset what the county is going to have to put in to balance out, quite frankly, because they can't be competitive. We also need to keep up with growth. Growth in Florida is at 29.15%. As I mentioned, we're the third fastest growing county. And so I'm asking for 5 additional deputy sheriffs for the city of Palm Coast. And so those would be additional deputies dedicated to handle the calls resulting from the growth that is occurring here. To put this in another perspective, and I almost hate to use this because I know you're not defunding the police, okay? You have been very supportive since I have been sheriff. But if we don't have the growth deputies that are necessary for the growth in the population that is increasing here, then the enhanced level of service that we all pride ourselves on, that the citizens rank not quite as high as the fire department, so I'll give that to the fire chief, but we know everybody loves firemen. But we're way up there, and I think we're well over 80%. And in some cases we did hit 90% for the feeling of safety. So if we don't continue to the level of enhanced level of service that you provide, then in effect it's defunding the police because you're lowering the service levels. And so I ask you to seriously consider the 5 additional deputies. I am asking for the county for 5 additional deputies also, just so you are. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
So let me start with a comment. It's more than a question. You've identified growth several times during your presentation today. So one of our city's strategic action plans is our westward expansion and all of the considerations that go along with that. It's also my understanding that when hiring a new deputy, there's a significant timeline before that deputy becomes what you would call territorial, fully trained, but territorial aware to be able to offer the highest level of services that we demand. The arithmetic that you mentioned is starting to get more and more complicated as we step forward. So I want to really address to my fellow city council members that, first of all, I've committed to city staff and also through my strategic action plan that public safety is one of my first priorities. So I certainly support your presentation this morning. But I also want to go on the record today to say that I am looking forward to transitioning our historical budget process into a a program that would resemble an impact fee structure for public safety that would allow us to keep pace with the growth that is very difficult to detail and to be specific about. We're enjoying growth, but it's accelerating growth. Studies go by the wayside now very quickly. I would expect that we hit that 100,000 population in very short order. I also know that it will take a significant amount of time for new deputies to get familiar with the terrain and be ready to protect our citizens. So it won't be this budget cycle, but in the next budget cycle, we will review the service levels and how they can be detailed in a impact type fee, which would resemble or follow the growth of the economy of the city, not unlike, I guess, what the county is looking at, or perhaps some other counties that we're familiar with. So I think that's the way of the future. Quite honestly, and I'll make this comment personally for myself, having the sheriff come here to ask for a specific number of personnel, from my side, he might as well come and ask me for how many bullets or how many cars or how many other things he needs. I am not an expert in that area. The sheriff is. I would like to see the budget determined by this fee structure so that the sheriff knows what he has to work for, what he can plan with, and how he can allocate those funds against the resources that he has the expertise to determine. So that's just a comment for me. It will not affect the current budget cycle, but I felt it was important that we put that out there now because it will take some time to go down that road. Do you want to comment back on that before? I'm kind of stepping on my fellow city council members. I'm sure they may have a comment, but.
Sure, Mayor, I'll be glad to. So, as you may know, most of my career was in the Orange County Sheriff's Office in Orlando, Florida. And that was the first agency in the state of Florida to have a law enforcement impact fee back in the late 70s, early 80s. I support the impact fee for that, and here's why. It takes the burden off the taxpayers for the capital needs of growth. And so it makes growth pay for those kind of things. So, for example, of the 5 deputies that I've asked for, in today's model, the city of Palm Coast has to pay for their uniforms, their bullets, their car, their radio, the salary, everything, okay, for 5 growth deputies. In an impact fee model, you pay for their salary, but all the equipment, okay, and that car and all the equipment in it today is about $80,000. That can be paid out of impact fees. And so, to me, that's growth, maybe not paying totally for itself, but certainly paying its share for the impact that growth has, so the burden is not off the residents that are currently here to do that.
Thank you for the explanation.
And Mayor, there was a second part to what you said, and I had a comment, and so we covered impact fees. What was the other part? I remember now. So the staffing, okay. I cannot speak, as you know, for the Board of County Commissioners, but I have been meeting with the Board of County Commissioners, and I think that there is interest by the current Board of County Commissioners to meet with the city of Palm Coast and take the manpower study and come up with a plan so that every year, instead of me having to go to you and having to go to the Board of County Commissioners and then negotiate both budgets with me in the middle, if you will, that it would set a staffing and funding plan that so that the city of Palm Coast and a Board of County Commissioners would know, okay, this year this is the expectation and this is what we need to fund. And the funding of it is, either ad valorem, sales tax, or impact fees. Right. So I believe from meeting with them individually, there is interest to see if the staffs can get together and work out a vision and a model that could be presented to the city council and the board of county
So
commissioners.
I have no doubt that we have already shown our desire to collaborate with the county. City manager is making that a part of her regular routine. But quite frankly, our residents in the city of Palm Coast don't ask a deputy, well, are you coming from the county side or the city side? Or they don't really care, and nor should they. So I think the enhanced collaboration will enhance our services as we tie it to our growth for the future. So I appreciate that. Vice Mayor, would you like to comment? Questions?
You mean, do I want to torture the sheriff? I usually do that on a breakfast before we come to here, and I usually torture him there. Well, I love him anyway. I just want to say that before we start, every single deputy sheriff that I know in this county is worth it, every penny they make. I know quite a few of them. I've spoken with them, and I think that the sheriff's department is becoming a lot more, in a way, like the fire department. The sheriff does not run this department as a business. He runs it like a family business, which a lot of these guys care for each other. They come out there, I've got your six, I've got your back. That's very important. Having that said, done, as you understand it, I want to, this side, it's more for my colleagues. The growth, according to your statistics, and I think they're right, you're talking about an average of 2,000 people moving into Palm Coast on a yearly basis. For this year, you ask for 5 deputies. That will be an increase of 13% in your budget. If you're going to do it for every year, for 5 new sheriffs, you're talking about 26% increase in your budget yearly. This has a lot to do, and I don't blame you at all, has a lot to do with the growth. So when we're talking about smart growth, let's figure this one in, please, because this is very important. And when I said that the sheriffs are worth every penny, with all due respect, teachers also deserve every penny. Because I've seen what they do, been there, done that. Priorities are great. I love the priorities, the team thing. With the amount of calls, and I don't want to call you a miracle worker. I don't want to call you a miracle worker, but the amount of calls you're getting, you still manage to get crime 53% down. That's a darn good job. I guess I'll be voting for you again when you run, but that's a different story. You lost about 20 people in your staff. I'm pretty sure that what you're asking for here today, it's not more money for the staff that you lost, because I'm pretty sure that money's still there. You have the money for the staff that you lost. You're asking for new money only. That has nothing to do with that. Am I correct on that?
Well, that's correct. Now the 5% increase in the budget goes to clearly the existing staff and the operation. So what I didn't explain, if I may, is to be competitive, what I've had to do, and you can see the numbers if I can get back to it. So when we started this fiscal year at 39.5, and then all my surrounding counties skyrocketed their salaries. So what I had to do was we had a 25-step pay plan. I chopped off the first 5 because I couldn't catch them. And so today, if I hire you, your starting pay is 46.5 today. Still behind all these other agencies, but I can't survive at the 39.5, so I had to do that. That's not fair to the existing employees, but it's the only way I could be competitive and stay within my current budget.
And that's why I said that every single one of them deserves the money. And the only other competition you have, I think they're losing, because you're catching them all and putting them in the green roof. So, Sheriff, unless I can't, there's nothing, if it's legal and ethical, that I wouldn't do for your department. And thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Councilman?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for the presentation, Sheriff. As you know, I fully support your department and all the great work that you're doing. I like the mayor's concept of funding this a different way in the future, next budget. I think, again, I don't know how many bullets you need. You do. I don't know how many patrol cars you need. I don't know how to do your job. So I think that's an excellent way to fund this. And we give you the money through these fees, impact fees. I like that concept, and you do what you need to do with it. Thank you very much for showing up today.
Thank you.
Councilman?
Thank you, Sheriff. I'd like to thank you and all your deputies for keeping all of us safe every day, for all that you do, from our students to our community. It is of paramount importance that we have what we need to keep everybody safe. The mayor mentioned it earlier this morning when he was reading our procedures. Health, safety, and welfare of our citizens is what we're here to do, and those should be our priorities. I'm very interested to hear more about impact fees, because I think that is a way to smartly manage the growth of our city and not put that added burden on the taxpayers that are already here. So I'm very interested in hearing more about that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sheriff, thank you, and we wish you and everyone in your department to be safe today and every day going forward. So appreciate you. Thank you again, and congratulations on your have you been inaugurated yet?
No, that's in July. It's
In
Florida
July,
Deputy
all right.
Sheriff Association, which I'm now the president of a 16,000 member organization, another volunteer job.
Okay.
But I just want to thank you for allowing me to present to you and explain the request. But I also want to commend the men and women of the Sheriff's Office. You know, I might set the vision, I get them the technology or real-time crime center, those kind of things. But it's the men and women on the street, in our jail, 911 center, the entire group that delivers the service to the community and delivered that 52.38% reduction in crime. It wasn't me, I just set the vision. So
Very
thank
good.
you for recognizing them.
Thank you very much. Be safe.
Thank you.
Our next presentation this morning will be the Pedestrian Feasibility Study. And Ms. Johnston, you'll kind of, okay. You'll tee it up. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Mark Manuel. I'm with the engineering firm, consulting firm, England, Timms & Miller. And the city has tasked us with completing this study. And as soon as the presentation, here we go. So this is our city council presentation. And we will, it's basically split into three parts as we'll go through. So first I want to go through the history, kind of where we've been to this point. So in 2008, the city completed the pedestrian bicycle plan. In 2014, the city joined the River to Sea TPO. And as part of that membership, that led to a TPO study, a bicycle pedestrian school safety review study. And one of the recommendations in that 2017 study was for the city to complete a future pedestrian accommodation feasibility study, which is why I'm here today. So in 2008, in order to, on the major roads in the master plan, there was some criteria that was used to determine where to build these improvements. Vicinity to parks and schools was a critical issue, filling in the gaps of the existing sidewalk, connecting to the trail network, and obviously the construction costs. You know, how much will it cost to do this? So far, since 2008, there's been more than 60 miles of pedestrian bicycle facilities constructed. More than $10 million has been invested in those facilities. Currently, there's more than 130 miles of pedestrian paths within the city limits, and the picture there just shows one example of those facilities. And then to take an excerpt out of the 2017 report, the goal of our study is to provide an exclusive pedestrian facility. We're trying to have a facility that's ADA compliant that will exclusively serve pedestrians. And so far, go back to the 2008 study, all of the arterials and major collectors either have sidewalks constructed or are currently programmed. So now to our project, what were we tasked with doing? So we wanted to consider the possibility of providing sidewalks on all of the city's residential collector roadways. In those typical sections, we found that all of the roads we visited had either 50 feet wide or 60 feet wide right-of-ways. And then we developed some alternatives and tried to identify some cost-feasible options. So we started with 70 roads, we narrowed that down to 66 that we evaluated, and included the definitions here just to make sure that we're all on the same page. A residential collector roadway was defined as a road that had residential driveways and that would normally connect to one of the arterial or major collector's roadway at both ends of the road. We did have some exceptions where there was only one connection. And then what's the definition of an arterial or a major collector? Well, these are roadways that have posted speed limits of 35 miles per hour or greater, and they do not typically have residential driveways, excuse me. So we identified about 40 roadways in the 60-foot right-of-way that are listed here, and another 30 or so in the 50-foot right-of-way. And then going back to what are we trying to accomplish? We want to improve pedestrian mobility on these roadways, but we were also tasked with identifying challenges and concerns, which we'll get into, and to develop reasonable solutions. Another objective, obviously, is safety. So we're trying to make these roadways safer for the non-motorized users. So the first of those objectives was to improve pedestrian mobility. Again, we wanted, if possible, to have an exclusive pedestrian facility, a sidewalk that would serve just pedestrians. We want to provide physical separation from the roadway. Want it to be ADA compliant if we build the sidewalk. Some of our options will not be ADA compliant, but they would be considered interim solutions. Second part of that was to identify the challenges and concerns. Obviously, the costs. There's only so much money and we've got to design, construct, and maintain these facilities. There may be some residential or neighborhood impacts. There's right-of-way and easement implications depending on what we end up doing. There could be drainage impacts because we're taking some of the existing right-of-way to turn it into a sidewalk or a path. And then there's the unintended consequences. Things like increased speeds if we were to add shoulders or on-street parking, those types of things. So we wanted to identify those as well. And then lastly, develop the reasonable solutions, which we've kind of narrowed down to 3 options, is to construct sidewalks. We may be able to construct some roadway shoulders as an interim solution. We may be able to convert some of the roads to one-way operation, but that's a very limited application. So these next several slides kind of give a visual of what we're talking about. This is the 60-foot right-of-way. Basically, the road's the middle with the 30-foot right-of-way on either side. This is what it looks like today. This would be considered a no-build option if we don't do anything. So the first option we looked at was building a sidewalk that's adjacent to the road, close to the road. The visual, again, is here. The sidewalk is close to the road. And we tried to list some of the pros and cons that jumped out at us. So that option would provide an exclusive pedestrian facility. It does preserve the residents' front yards. It's very low maintenance costs comparatively. It should only have minor swale impacts. It should fit within the existing right-of-way and the easements. The only obvious concern is the cost. How do we build this? Option 2, which is in the 60-foot right-of-way, is a little bit different. Is that we've moved the sidewalk closer to the residents' the residents' property line. We placed the swale between the sidewalk and the road, so it's very similar to the first option, but it gets the pedestrian further away from the travel lane. So the positives there is it does, again, provide that facility, has the same low maintenance costs, minor swale impacts, and it fits within the existing right-of-way. Some of the potential negative impacts are that it's closer to the residents, the houses. There could be additional impacts to the residential driveways. When we were out there were a lot of people parking in their driveways, so how does the pedestrian get through the parked cars? And then, again, the sidewalk construction costs. So a third option, which is very similar to the first option, is that we put the sidewalk back closer to the road, but if we have issues with the swale, then we would pipe the swale. So the only difference between option 1 and this is that the swale becomes much less of an issue because we have the pipe underneath the swale to collect all of the stormwater. So again, the pros and cons. It still provides that exclusive facility. This also preserves the residents' front yard. The sidewalk is farthest away from the houses, but there are some significant pipe costs as well as the sidewalk costs. There's high maintenance costs because now you've got to maintain this drainage system. It possibly could reduce the swale benefits of why we have the swales in the city, and it may require additional right-of-way for this water. If we put all this water in the pipe, where does it go? Where do we hold it? So those are some concerns. The fourth option is to provide the 5-foot shoulders within the 60-foot right-of-way. Most of the travel lanes are 11 or 12 feet, so we'd be adding 3 or 4 feet of shoulder on each side as shown. The same thing, it does provide some pedestrian accommodation. It's not an exclusive facility, but it provides a place for pedestrians and cyclists. Again, this preserves the residents' front yards. It's very low maintenance costs, minor swale impacts, should fit within the existing right-of-way. But one of the things is we suggested or recommended that the shoulder be built on both sides of the road, so it's a more expensive solution because we're building it on both sides. It also may encourage on-street parking, and it may encourage increased travel speed. And then the last option for the 60-foot right-of-way is to convert a road to one-way. As shown here, we would take the existing roadway, put a 10-foot travel lane in the middle, and then whatever's left, we would create 2 shoulders. So it's very similar, but it has a lot of pros and cons. So it provides a place for the pedestrians and cyclists. We're not impacting the street at all other than striping. So it's minimal construction costs, low maintenance costs, and it's obviously fitting within the existing right-of-way. But there's some negatives as well. It will definitely alter the travel patterns. People will be coming in one way and leaving another. It will increase emergency response times for those roadways. Again, it may encourage on-street parking and increase travel speeds, and compliance is going to be something that we'll need to do with one-way street. We'll need some enforcement. And as highlighted on the left, it does have very limited applications. There's not many roads that this would be appropriate for, but we definitely wanted to include it as an option. So I'm going to go through these a little bit faster. These are basically the same options, but within a 50-foot right-of-way. So this is existing with a no-build option. This is the same option where we're building the sidewalk adjacent to the roadway. Basically has the same advantages and disadvantages. The option 2, which was in previously, is we move the sidewalk closer to the house. We don't think that's an option within the 50-foot right-of-way just because we don't have enough room. So we don't think that's feasible within the 50-foot right-of-way. Option 3 is the same option as before, where we would be piping the swale, and it has the same advantages and disadvantages as before. And then the 50-foot right-of-way, option 4 would provide the shoulders. These, within the 50-foot right-of-way, the travel lanes are 10 feet wide, so we'd be adding 5 feet of shoulders, so a little bit, actually more construction required for this option as compared to the 60-foot right-of-way. But then it has the same pros and cons. And then the last option is option 5, to convert to one-way roadway as before. It has some pros, but it also has some cons. So those are the 5 options that we looked at. We were also tasked with kind of giving an idea of what that would cost. So per our scope, we came up with a cost for each of those options based on a 1,000-foot section of improvements. So the length of the improvement at the top row there is 1,000 feet, and we have a range of what we think it will cost. A lot of that cost is dependent upon how many driveways we're crossing. So the more driveways, the more expensive the option would be. So then, although we didn't list all 66 roads, we've listed a few here, 3 roads here to give you an idea. Parkview Drive, 6,000 feet, Pritchard Drive, almost 10,000 feet, and Cimarron Drive, and what those costs would be for each option. And I would, like to, I guess, call to your attention, options 1 through 4 are all very expensive. Option 5 is the only option that comparatively isn't very expensive, so you get an idea of what we think it will cost to make these types of improvements on these roadways. So then the next logical step for us was, how much would, if we did everything on every road, how much are we talking? So those 66 roads are equal to 68 miles of roadway. And so option 1 and option 2, which are the sidewalk only, depending on where it is, it's about $130 million if we were to do all 68 miles. Option 3, which is includes piping the swale, more expensive, and then the shoulder option, option 4, is the most expensive because we're doing it on both sides of the road. We didn't include a cost for option 5 because we just don't think it's feasible for what we're trying to accomplish. And then from this standpoint, tried to put all the pros and cons in one place so you can kind of see the advantages and disadvantages. Option 2, providing the sidewalk closer to the residence is not an option within the 50-foot right-of-way, but you can see all the green check marks depending on the options, and also the red X's for the negatives. So that's just a summary of the pros and cons for what we looked at. And then lastly, for the second part of what we did as part of the study, we wanted to include this project disclaimer because it became very important to mention that not all the options identified in those previous slides are appropriate for each roadway, and there are limited applications for each option, and there are there's limited funding, if any, available to implement these improvements. So that's the second part, and then the last part of the study is we went to a prioritization aspect. Is we've got 66 roads, how do we prioritize it? So we went back to the 2008 study to give us some guidance. So the bullets listed here, vicinities of schools, important. The number of residents that would have access to this improved facility was important. We listed existing traffic conflicts. The more vehicles are on the road and the more pedestrians are on the road, the more conflicts we're going to have. Whether or not there was an exclusive neighborhood entrance, whether that was the only way to get in or out of the neighborhood, the vicinity to public parks, whether there's a direct connection to an existing network, and then is there any grant funding available? So we'll go through each of these real quickly. This is a map that shows the elementary, middle, and high schools in the different colors. If the sidewalk was included in that circle, then it got 5 points, 0.5 points for walkability. If it's outside, it didn't get any points. This is a more complicated chart, but it gives you an idea of how many rooftops will be served, how many people will be served, how many conflicts could be created, and created the same scale for the higher the value, the more points, the more scoring that candidate received. This one's pretty self-explanatory. If it only had one access, it got 1.5 points. If it had more than one access, it didn't get any additional points. Did it connect to an existing network? If they had a direct connection, then it got a half a point. If it didn't, it got 0 points. Same with the vicinity of public parks. If it was in a mile of a public park, it got half a point. If it did not, it got 0. And then lastly, available grant funding. We've listed 2 here, the safe routes to school, and that goes back to the school map we looked at earlier. If it's within those circles, it got a half a point. If it did not, then it did not get any points. Then another option, which is shown here on the map to the right, the areas in purple are considered low or medium income areas, and they are therefore eligible for community development block grant funding. And if it is eligible, then they got a half a point for being within those purple areas. If not, they didn't get any point. So with all that, these are our top 16 ranked roadways as listed in order. And we started with the top 16. And then finally, we had a public meeting. These were some of the questions that were asked, and I'll just quickly go through that. So one of the questions was the study schedule, which we're hoping to complete by the end of this month. One of the residents wanted to know why we wouldn't consider sidewalks on both sides of the road. Well, we could, but it would be double the cost. Then conversely, one resident asked, well, why don't we just consider shoulder on one side of the road? And we didn't want to consider that just because I think with cyclists, having cyclists on the road traveling in one shoulder against traffic would be an issue. So we strongly recommend that you include shoulders on both sides. One resident wanted us to consider elevated structures, like put the path on top of the swell but elevate it, and I think that would have some maintenance nightmares for the city. Same thing with delineators. Can we put delineators along the shoulder to separate the different movements? And again, I think that because of the number of driveways that are there, that'd be very difficult to realize those benefits. Talked about accommodations for people with disabilities. Hopefully we've covered that. If we do sidewalks, they would be ADA compliant. And then they asked us if we would consider bike lanes, painted bike lanes like on Palm Coast Parkway, and that is something we can consider, but that's something probably more in the design phase that we would need to coordinate with the city. They wanted to know if funding sources had been identified or if there were any designs that were ready to construct. The answer to both of those questions is no. Has law enforcement been consulted? The city has agreed to coordinate with law enforcement to address any enforcement needs. How are the roads prioritized? That was a question which we've explained previously based on the scoring. And lastly, what can be done if there's not enough money? Going back to the grant question, we listed the two possible grants, but there are a lot of federal funding. And of interest for this is one of the requirements of the federal funding opportunities is that you have a plan in place, which this study would check that box. So that will help the city. And then several comments. The resident was concerned with children walking to and from the bus stop, so that's something we also considered. One of the comments was that they believe that share the walkway signs help, but they prefer the sidewalk options because it would accommodate pedestrians, especially people walking dogs, walking their pets. Residents preferred the sidewalk option and does not think the painted pavement markings will do enough to protect pedestrians or cyclists on the roadway. Another resident did not think the bicyclists should use the sidewalk. They did not think that was a good idea, but thought that if we built the sidewalk, then the pedestrians could get out of the road, which would also help the cyclists. And then lastly, most attendees did not support the one-way option. That was not a option they wanted to consider. So that's my presentation. I'd be, I guess the last thing before I take any questions and comments is that kind of gives you the history of where we've been and where we're going, but we also are looking for some direction, to make sure that what we're doing agrees with what the council wants us to do. So.
Can you, you mentioned the history, you've done the study, and help me with this. Can you clarify, there are 68 miles you've identified as subject to your study because you feel a need for improvement in one of those possibilities? Because you had mentioned 130 miles and versus 68 miles, which is the number we're working with?
130 are improvements that are already in place. So the residential collector are the only roadways we looked at, and those 66 roadways that we looked at are equivalent to 68 miles of roadway.
Okay, so we're focused on the 68 miles. So going back a step in the history, help me with this. The master planning that was done originally when the Palm Coast community was laid out, why was this not attended to, considered, or envisioned? Do you have an opinion?
Yes, I believe that the 2008 study only focused on the major collectors and the arterials, did not consider the residential collectors at that time. And I think this effort came out of the 2017 study that was completed by the TPO for the city that recommended this residential collector feasibility study.
So just out of curiosity, going back to before 1999, why was none of this envisioned then? Do you have an opinion?
I have an opinion, yes. Because
Yes.
like during my career, when I started, the focus was how do we move vehicles. So all the focus was how do we get a person from point A to point B the fastest, the quickest way. And so it was focused on motorists.
So despite the fact that this was originally envisioned as a pre-retirement or retirement community, there was little or no consideration for those that might want, mobility other than with a vehicle.
Correct. That would be my guess.
So a lesson learned for our future westward expansion, not to repeat, that part for the past. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's my understanding that based on your chart, just to bring it down to a level that I can understand, if you picked, I think Cimarron Drive was the fourth example on your chart. If you did a cocktail napkin calculation, it would cost, at least in today's money, almost $18,000. That would be more than the cost of a roof to do a single lot front.
We didn't look at it from a per lot, but we did it per 1,000 feet. So that gives you an idea of what those 3 roads that we use as examples. I think all 3 of those are in our top 6.
And the other point I'll make is that in order for any of those 4 scenarios to happen, there would have to be resident buy-in. When I say buy-in, meaning agreement or legal easement, acceptance, permission.
Well, it depends on if there's adequate right-of-way to allow for the pedestrian
Assuming
facilities
that
already.
all the properties do not have sufficient right-of-way, there would be a lot of legal requirement.
Well, did you look at
Yeah,
widths?
our options, we believe all of our options fit within the existing right-of-way.
Oh, okay.
So that's what we try to do, as well as the city has an easement on each side of the road, that we would anticipate that easement would be used for construction easement to tie in, while they're doing whatever the construction is, if they need that area, that'll give them some room to work without being on private property.
And even the driveway piece, because of the slope, having to move 3/4 of the way up a person's driveway, still falls within an easement?
It would fall within the right-of-way.
Right.
Within the right-of-way, okay.
That is-
Pavement, the pavement that you see on a typical residential road is just a small portion, maybe a third, would you say, of the entirety of the width of the right-of-way. Most right-of-ways are, a third, and a third of a shoulder, curbing, pedestrian facilities, pavement, and then another third on the other side.
So using this picture, the house would be the equivalent of just right off the screen. So you'd have the road, have about 10 feet, in this case, 10 or 15 feet of right-of-way or easement, and then about another 15, 20 feet, depending on where the house stood, 15 to 30 feet away would be the house.
Okay.
And so the closer the sidewalk is, we were concerned with that, even though it'd be safer for pedestrians to be further away from the road, we were concerned that that would then put the pedestrian closer to the houses, which I'm not sure the residents would. I just try to put myself in their shoes, but I want the sidewalk that close to my house.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor?
Anyway, you mentioned the residents. Not long ago, I mentioned my neighbor, my next-door neighbor, when I told him, would you give up 1.5 feet of your property in order to implement our safety, which is much needed? He answered like a machine gun. No. I said that here a few times. I foresee this litigation. You know it's going to happen. We have 68 miles to do, which is much needed. And the money, it's in between 130 and 220 millions. But if we go in the middle, you're talking about, let's say, $17 million for the next 10 years, just to do, basically, out of those 68 streets. See how long is it going to take? Just 10 years, okay? If you do 17 million a year, which, by the way, I don't know where we're going to get that money, but I'm pretty sure we'll come up with something creatively. I don't really agree with one thing on the prioritization. And I had said that to staff. One thing that should be considered here, and I used my street as an example. It doesn't really affect me personally, but I think is the longest street that it affects, because when you use Eric Drive, which is about 3 miles, roughly 3 miles as a horseshoe,
Right.
anyone in the middle will walk 1.5 miles, will walk 1.5 miles until they get to East Hampton to get to the safe sidewalk. So that should be considered in your criteria. My proposal was, in my opinion, which is not here, would be the least the one that invades the least any property, which would be 2.5 feet in one side, 2.5 feet on the other side, you get your 5 feet. Create a 5 feet lane in one side, and that's the least invasive. But what I was told by the experts, which I'm not an expert, that's not feasible. Don't recall why, but it's not feasible. In my opinion, would it be the least invasive? And you'll be hitting both sides of the streets, not just one. 2.5 on one side, 2.5 on the other side. Just move the street a little bit to one side or the other. You still keep it 2 ways, and you'll have your 5 feet. Okay? But for now, basically what I have to say is that litigation, it's going to be like there's no tomorrow. You could see it coming, and it's going to take years and years before you could even start this, unless we start using eminent domain, which, and
Councilmember, I think I just have to clear something up. We're not proposing to take any property to do this. It's already within our right-of-way. So
Absolutely.
we don't have, so I don't know what grounds someone would have to litigate against us, because we're using our own property that we already have to do
and I'm not,
this.
I don't mean to interrupt, I'm not saying they have any grounds. I'm saying it's going to happen.
Oh, okay. That people will try to do it.
Of
Okay.
course. Okay, and then if I have any further questions, I'll put them at the end of it.
So,
Councilman?
since Councilman Keno brought up litigation, and as we all know, people sue for anything these days, I want to ask council a question, because a lot of folks have driveways that are brick pavers, or they've had epoxy put over them. We just, stamp concrete as opposed to just a regular blacktop driveway. I would assume, from what I gathered from staff when I was briefed on this earlier, is doing something this massive, we would not do what we normally would do in the past, which was, put your pavers back, keep it all normal, that we would probably have to just pour cement or blacktop. So we do this to folks, and we destroy the look, the aesthetics of their driveway. Council, would that not be a reason for someone to file a lawsuit against us?
Our practice would be to put back identical to what.
Right, but you would then be,
Not go through their driveway and put a blank concrete or blank.
we would not do that on something this massive, because that's what I gathered when we met.
We would do it appropriately for each driveway we match.
We would. So if you had cement as a sidewalk and you hit someone's driveway, you would not,
I think he's saying they would stop.
you would stop.
Stop the sidewalk and then start it on the next side.
The pavers would be replaced until you got to the other side of the driveway.
Okay. Because my understanding was to do it that way would be a more expensive approach, correct?
That will be part of the expense, and that was calculated in the.
That's the 18 grand.
Okay,
a lot, yeah.
I misunderstood
However,
something.
but your point is well taken, because there's another issue too. So, in many of these neighborhoods, the incline, the angle of the driveway is a significant issue, because we run into ADA.
Right.
So you can't have a sloped or a tilted sidewalk beyond a certain tolerance or variance. So that was my issue before, about you may have to climb up a significant portion of the resident's driveway to re-slope the driveway, so that by the time you get to the replaced pavers, they are not still on that same incline. They now comply with ADA. So and the reason I go through that is you've asked for direction. So there's another whole piece to this study process, because you have yet to identify, you've identified roadways as a whole. You have not looked at individual resident property types. I'm not talking about every single one, that would come way down the road. But one of the possibilities would be to begin to group properties into types that require different levels of improvement based on, all of these different factors.
And we have done some of that, so we went out and measured some of the driveways. The biggest incline we found was almost 21%, so pretty steep. And to address that problem, we think that the answer is going to be, at those driveways that have significant slope, is that we're going to have to meander the sidewalk closer to the road where they come together. So the sidewalk will be close to the road, and then anything that we have to do to make up for that driveway could be on the resident side of the right-of-way.
Anyway, I just want to add, I'm glad we have at least a plan at this point, which we didn't have before.
Well, the plan begins to open up the opportunity for identifying a funding resource. So I represent the city on our TPO, which prioritizes projects for DOT. So with a plan in place, we could begin the conversation, but I don't want to sugarcoat this. So, you know, being loud and proud at my TPO board meetings, I have a lot of competition for these dollars, and they tend to have lengthy timelines. So we will get that process started immediately, but you do have to have a plan in place to be
Right,
able
which
to
I'm glad
make
we
an ask.
have, and that's wonderful, but let's not fool ourselves. This is not a must-have. Our roads are a more serious issue that we have to confront in the next 5 years. And with inflation right now, with the price of gasoline, with people feeling pain at the pumps and at home, this is something that we will have to look at down the road when economic times are much better. But at least we have a plan, so it's a good step forward.
Councilman?
Could we go back to the slide with the 3 different roadways? In looking at that, it looked as if Cimarron actually had more length, more footage there, but would actually be cheaper to complete than Parkview Drive. Is that correct? In option 1 or 2?
Not necessarily. So Parkview would be almost 2 million and Cimarron would be 1.8 because, oh, you're saying the other way.
Yeah, so what is
Yeah,
the
so
reasoning?
that-
Why is it more length but cheaper to do it?
Because there's probably more driveways.
It's based off the
So in
driveways.
every driveway, we're gonna have to replace the culvert that's under it, the mitered in sections, so the more driveways, the driveways are what drove the cost. So if we can find a side of the road that has less driveways, that's the side of the road we'd wanna put it on.
Was that taken into account for prioritization, that this project may be a little more cost feasible? The Cimarron project
I
over
don't believe
Parkview?
so. I
or-
think we were just looking at it strictly from the scoring and not the number of driveways, but more of how many people would benefit from this facility.
Okay.
And one other comment that I didn't maybe address, one of the things we've talked about internally is we're trying to funnel this down. So the top 16 that we've come up with, we think are much more critical candidates and much more important candidates than say the bottom 16. So if we can't afford the $17 million a year, can we afford to do the first 5 of them, the first 3 of them, the first 1 of them, have a pilot program, just to see how this goes and to see if it makes sense. So that's what we're thinking.
So as one voice, and I'm also going to ask city manager to weigh in, I think the concept of picking a model, picking a pilot program with a parallel option that city staff will work on, that may be an option just slightly different than what we saw up here today, which might be more affordable and might be more palatable to the residents, is something that I would offer up as direction. So from your point of view, it would be to, what should the model or the pilot program be? Because if you get that right, then you've really got a plan that you could, perhaps roll forward in an affordable way with funding sources at the, through DOT down through TPO. And then I'd like city staff to work on a parallel concept that might not be as complete and solve all the issues at one time, but might improve the safety of our residents in the shorter term without blowing up the budget.
I appreciate that, Mayor. I apologize, voice is a little gruff this morning. But yes, our staff is looking at a comprehensive approach, so no stone unturned, right, of making sure that we're bringing safety and accountability in a pilot project. And those discussions are early on, but thank you for that.
One thing that, once again, I mentioned at the meeting that we had with staff. One thing we didn't mention here today is that some of these options will actually interfere how you park on your driveway, because they will be taking quite a few feet from parking on your driveway. And that's the reason why I said that the machine gun, the oral machine gun, no, is that when that happens, that litigation starts, even though we have the right, we all right about it, but litigation will be there, as you know. Now, as the pilot program, and here I said also, we should pick the one that needs it the most, not oil the wheel that squeaks the most. And I mean this with all the respect, okay? So I would say that pilot program, money-wise, I don't know where we're gonna get just to do $17 million a year, just to do, part of it, average, in between 130 and 220 million dollars, just to be in the middle. It's going to be a lot of money. It's going to be a lot of finagling to do here, and a little bit in disagreement with a little bit only with Ed Danko is that it's safety. What we're looking over here mostly, it's safety. Okay, it's not this is not for anybody's pleasure. It's just safety. It's just as much as safety as the streets that we have to repave. Because if you don't believe that a bad street could lead you to an accident, then think again. So this is, in my opinion, important, even though where we already have money kind of oriented for. I don't know where we're going to get all that money, to be honest with you. Sometimes you run out of words. You can, we are not miracle workers over here. We try to do what's the best for the city, and sure heck, safety, it's in the mind, in the back of our heads with every single thing we do here. But, and I want to thank Mr. Al Crea for the job he's been doing, because that man deserves credit for what he's been doing. He's bringing up to the attention of what some other 60 or 70 or 80 streets didn't do, okay? My kudos for you, sir, and even though that's not everybody, but most of the people agrees with you in your own street, but I think you've done a phenomenal job, and at least we have now an orientation. I think we pleased, okay, your committee, at least the way we're going, because if there's any other ideas, please bring it on. Please bring it on, because we depend on this type of opinions. We depend on the traffic engineer, because that's one thing I won't do is tell the traffic engineer what to do. Because the minute I do, that's the minute I'm responsible for whatever happens there. I don't have the technical knowledge to tell them that. And that's, I think I said that to staff. But I just think we should approach this, and Mr. Mayor, if you, with the TPO, just as much as you can, if you would be so kind to do so, let's open this and see when we can come up with anything. We're going through hard times, and we know it. And, sometimes when you put hard times with safety, honestly, sometimes I don't know what to say or do, but this is my opinion only. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Vice Mayor.
just want to add, Mr. Mayor, first, I want to thank Al, too. And I think safety on Cimarron is really the theme that you brought to us, and I'm glad to hear that our staff is working on some sort of alternate until we can get the rest of this done. But I did want to ask, because Councilman Burkino brought it up, which I didn't even think of, that if we do this, we will be shortening driveways. And we already get a lot of folks complaining that they don't have enough space to park their vehicles, but yet we don't allow them to park on a lawn or in a swale. So what happens if I cut your driveway off and all of a sudden, if I'm a resident who has 4 cars because of children, and now I don't have enough room, would that present us a legal issue? I don't know. But
I'm not sure, I don't know that there would be legal grounds for damages there. I guess it would depend on where the house is situated. It's gonna be on a case-by-case basis. I don't know, I'm assuming we have some provisions in our code that say you can't park across the sidewalk.
oh, I'm sure we must.
So, I'm not sure and probably somebody from permitting could answer it better as far as where is the driveway measured? Is it measured from the pavement? Probably not. It's probably measured from where the right-of-way starts, because that's actually where your property line begins. So I think a lot of people assume that their driveway is all theirs, but some portion of it is gonna be actually within the city right-of-way. So I can't answer that question,
It's just
but
something,
it may or may not be a concern.
it's a bridge we'll have to cross at
So
some point.
even above that, what I think you're addressing is it's a quality of life issue. So this would begin to infringe on people's perception and their quality of life, which really is one of our most important concerns. If you're forcing them to change their lifestyle, so now you've got that double-edged sword. You've got the quality of life versus public safety. So we will have to be, you know, as creative as we possibly can to keep this as a focus and to step these projects forward until we find the most attainable solution possible.
I agree, and I agree with Councilman Burkino. Safety first.
Yeah, and the U-shape, especially people that got like a U-shaped driveway, they're going to interfere in two sides of the.
Yeah.
Councilman, last comment?
I think it's great that we've done this study now, so we know what we're looking at. And I think as we move forward into the budget cycle, we'll be able to see what we can fund, how much it'll cost, and we can prioritize projects out over 5 or 10 years. It's definitely going to be something that's going to take some time, and we have to prioritize needs and wants.
So thank you for the presentation. I want to thank staff too. I mean, so the summarized calculations and schematics and bullet points that you have seen this morning are backed up by a tremendous amount of effort on behalf of staff and planning. This is not something that we've had to do before. This is clearly a deficiency in the original master plan of the city of before Palm Coast was ever a city. So we're having to draw from way back in the past and fix a wrong for the future and learn from this lesson. So thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Oswald.
Next up, I know City Councilor is with bated breath. Would you read the resolution into the record, please?
Yes, this is item number 3 on the agenda, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, approving the Second Amendment to the interlocal agreement with Flagler Beach relating to potable water sale and shared utility customers, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for implementing actions, and providing for an effective date. And Steve Flanagan is here, but he and I both worked on this matter, so we'll both be able to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, that's certainly a wealth of knowledge between the two of you to draw from, so please have at it.
Thank you, Mayor, for both of us. Good morning, Mayor, Council, and residents. Steve Flanagan, your Utility Director. I am happy to present to you today an amendment to an existing interlocal with the City of Flagler Beach. The cities of Palm Coast and Flagler Beach, Florida, entered into an interlocal agreement in August of 2006 in an effort to service properties in the State Road 100, Colbert Lane, and Roberts Road area north of State Road 100. This was done in an effort to have both parties best utilize existing utility systems already in the area while limiting the additional capital cost of running new infrastructure to some of these properties. Properties were defined as being in areas either A or B. Pursuant to the interlocal agreement, properties within the area designated as Area A would have the City of Palm Coast provide water service and the City of Flagler Beach provide wastewater service. Some of these properties have now been improved with new development on their sites and are being served according to the terms of the interlocal agreement. Improved properties consist of Beach Village apartments, a 7-Eleven convenience store, 2 banking facilities, and a public shopping center complex with other retail stores attached, as shown on this map. Properties in the Area B were proposed to be served by the City of Palm Coast providing bulk water feed to the City of Flagler Beach, and then Flagler Beach would basically resell that water to the property owners within Area B. Since the approval of the interlocal agreement in 2006, no customers have existed and no development has occurred on the properties within Area B. After discussions with representatives of both cities, it was determined by Flagler Beach staff that they would prefer to amend the interlocal agreement and serve Area B directly from its water distribution system and treatment facilities. Flagler Beach will need to extend their water lines to the Area B to accomplish servicing the properties direct from their system. To facilitate Flagler Beach's efforts, Palm Coast would agree to provide bulk water on a temporary basis to allow development to begin while Flagler Beach works to design, permit, and then construct the extension of their water system to the property in Area B. The temporary bulk water would be provided by Palm Coast to Flagler Beach until roughly January 1 of 2023. After this date, Palm Coast would continue to provide bulk water to customers in the Area A and would have no further responsibilities to provide bulk water to Area B. At this time, I would like to thank Council for their support and direction in working with our community partners on projects like this. Ms. Bevan, Ms. Nasa Burkert, Ms. Virginia Smith, Mr. Chris Johnson, and Ms. Tony Churchill for their efforts on this amendment as well. And now, at this time, I would be glad to take and try and answer any additional or questions that you might have.
So, Mr. Flanagan, this may be a question for council, actually. I'm not familiar with Flagler Beach government, nor their budget, nor their public works project priorities. Is there any chance that this project goes beyond the anticipated date of 2023? Because I know they do have other issues that they have to deal with by state mandate, I think.
So the way that this is set up is that the city is no longer going to be providing bulk water to the Area B property. And I apologize, the map's not up, but it's page 65 of your agenda. What it does do is allow for the city to provide bulk water on a temporary basis so that Flagler Beach has the opportunity to extend their lines that are located in the area now. It's been almost 20 years since this agreement was originally entered into, and a lot has changed in this area. So there is a chance, I suppose, that they couldn't get their lines in place, and we would have to provide temporary construction water for a period of time that's longer. But we could address that if council didn't want to see it again. We could address it by allowing for the city, giving the city manager the authority to extend the temporary bulk water sale for a period of time until Flagler Beach can get their infrastructure in place.
And they pay two things. It doesn't tap your reserve process, and they do pay for that, right?
They will pay for the monthly usage of the water. They will not pay for a capacity fee since it's temporary water. Okay. And that's the way we've always handled that. So temporary water situations do not pay capacity fees. Permanent water pays capacity fees.
And if it were to have to, if the agreement were amended so that city manager could extend it if necessary for unknown reasons, does that get in your way with your priorities and other projects? I mean, I know staff is in favor of it, but I'm just looking at the potential downside just in case.
No, I don't see that being a problem, Mayor. I think it's a good plan to have that as an option because it's a somewhat aggressive schedule, you might say, to be able to design, permit, and construct that line within 6 months. They're going to have to go after it to get it done.
Yeah, because, I mean, every developer or builder or anyone that's come before us has, had problems, whether it be, staffing up or supply chain. So I think you just have to build in that so that, set expectations correctly. Now, fill me in again, the wastewater part of this goes where?
In the Area B setup from the original time frame of 2006, all the wastewater was going to Flagler Beach. So these properties in Area B are within the city limits of Flagler Beach.
Okay.
And Flagler Beach has the system to to service the wastewater needs.
So Counselor, help me with this. I don't want to get outside my lane. So Flagler Beach is struggling with a wastewater issue. I don't want to be adding to that problem.
Oh, they don't have a wastewater issue. They've been providing wastewater in Area A this whole time. We have only been providing water service there. We haven't provided wastewater service. And Area B has never been developed, but it was always the plan for them to handle the wastewater, and we would provide bulk water.
So as far as we know, they have the ability to take care of the wastewater properly and ecologically in a correct manner.
As far as we're aware, that hasn't been part of our discussion.
Correct, that was not part of our discussions, but I do believe that they have capital improvements to their wastewater facility either underway or planned in the near future.
Planned, well, that's what I'm getting at, planned in the future. I mean, there's an issue with the Intercoastal Waterway. I want to be a good steward, not just of the city, but of the area. That's where I'm going with this. And I just want to be sure that we're helping and we're doing the right thing, because, our residents also depend on the Intercoastal Waterway as a amenity, and I want to make sure that we're not any part of contributing it to its, whatever.
I appreciate that, because every impact that hits the waterway is an impact we deal with as well from the utility standpoint, because we have to do random sampling of the waterway for discharges that we do on the rare basis that we discharge to the river. So everybody, needs to work together.
Exactly.
And
I mean, we really do. It's a shared resource for the entire area, and certainly the governor is watching over the state in terms of with a bit of a green thumb in terms of protecting our environmental resources for the next generation. So I'd like all of us to pay attention to that as well. And so direction to staff would be just an amendment, which authorizing the city manager to make that call should it be necessary. And if you would keep us up to date on Flagler Beach's solution to their outflow of wastewater into the intercoastal, I'd appreciate it.
We'll make contact with them. So.
And
Basically, you mentioned temporary bulk water. How temporary is that?
Well, right now, per the agreement, would be through the end of this calendar year. But as we spoke about, it may extend a brief period beyond that.
You're talking about a little over a year and a half?
You're talking probably, at this point, it's basically 6 months in the agreement, but it may be 9 months, it may be 10 months, it may be 8 months, depending on their project schedule. And they are, one of the things I would add to that, thank you, Councilman, is Flagler Beach is working with the developer of the apartment project that kind of started this ball rolling. So that should help them minimize the time frame a little bit as well.
One thing, I agree with you completely, and I see no reason, absolute no reason for us not to, enter this agreement and cooperate. We have to cooperate with our next door neighbor. I'll promise you, I will not do what they did to us on July 4th festivities. We will cooperate. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to echo exactly what you just said,
Okay.
because I was about to say it.
Okay.
And I hope we take July 4th back from now on and we keep it.
Councilman?
I don't want
No,
to get
the two that I had were, I wanted to make sure it didn't create an undue burden on our utilities for our citizens, and that, the timeline seemed quite aggressive, and I think that's been addressed, so thank you.
And I'll just note one more thing, this will come back on the 21st for a vote, so next week. And then Flagler Beach they don't have workshops, but they've got the same type of update on this last Thursday, and it will go to their council meeting next week also on Thursday for final approval.
And the underlying theme here is that this does expedite or accelerate the development process for some of Flagler Beach's projects. So some of which will allow future Flagler Beach homeowners or renters or whatever to enjoy some of our buy, shop, and play in Palm Coast. So there's a benefit for everybody.
Yes, it's my understanding that the parcel that will have the apartment complex on it that kind of drove this modification to the agreement. Also, just across the street on the remainder of the, or most of the remainder of the Area B is going to be developed probably fairly soon as well.
Very good. All right, Mr. Flanagan, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
As we move down the agenda, we are at item number 4, and we have a presentation from our award-winning finance department.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Yes, you are correct. We are here this morning for a presentation on property taxes and trim. And this is in preparation for your July 12th workshop, where we will be reviewing the proposed general fund budget in detail with council, and also starting the process of setting the maximum millage rate. So I will let Gwen get us started.
Want this?
My bad.
I can see, thank you, though, I appreciate it. I looked at it before. Thanks, though.
Okay, good morning, Mayor and City Council.
Morning.
Here's our timeline. We will not go over it in detail. However, to date, you have had presentations on the annual audit, the survey results, participated in the staff evaluations, the year-to-date budget results, and fund accounting and revenue restrictions. Today, we will cover property tax, and we'll come back to Council on July 12th to review the general fund budget and the maximum millage rate. In the months of July and August, we will hold multiple budget presentations where you will have the opportunity to review the budgets in detail as we move through the budget process with adoption in September. So now we are going to move to the truth in millage. So truth in millage, or TRIM, establishes statutory requirements. All taxing authorities levying a millage must follow and requires full disclosure of the rates and amounts of taxes prior to levying the taxes. The City of Palm Coast submits a package to TRIM for evaluation to make sure we have met the requirements. We receive a certification letter, and all taxing authorities have to follow the same rules. So this is a look at the TRIM timeline. By June 1st, the property appraiser provided a total assessed value of the non-exempt property. The City of Palm Coast received an estimate of $7.5 billion, an increase of 17.25% increase from the previous year. By July 1st, the property appraiser will certify the taxable value, and within 35 days of the value certification, the current year proposed maximum millage rate must be set. So July 12th, we will bring the general fund budget presentation to City Council with the opportunity to set the maximum millage. As a reminder, the assessed millage can be reduced but cannot be increased after this point. We will come to you July 19th to adopt the proposed millage rate. So I will now turn it over to Helena.
So the process of determining the property taxes involves 3 agencies: the property appraiser, the tax collector, and of course the City of Palm Coast. The property appraiser is responsible for the assessed value, which determines the base for the calculation. There are of course several exemptions and that are available to residents. The applicability of those exemptions is determined by the property appraiser's office. So the net assessed value less the exemptions represents the taxable value. City Council determines the millage or tax rate, and the millage rate multiplied by the taxable value gives us the ad valorem tax amount. The third agency, which is the tax collector, is then responsible for billing the residents, collecting the taxes, and submitting them back to the city. Now, there is a difference between market value and taxable value. Because Florida is subject to the Save Our Homes Act, under the Save Our Homes Act, the increase in taxable value of a homesteaded property or main residence has a cap of 3% or CPI, the lesser of the two. So as market value increases at a higher rate, it creates a gap. And there could be a significant difference in tax due from a resident that has held a property for 10 years and the next door neighbor that just moved to the city. Now, the property appraiser's website has a calculator that can help prospective residents calculate the applicable tax due for a particular address within the county. This graph is an illustration of that gap. As you can see in year one, both taxable and market value are the same. If market value were to increase by 50% and the taxable value could only increase by 3%. So as the years pass, that gap becomes more significant. So one of the items that we reviewed earlier is that the trim notice is sent out by the property appraiser. This is the example of a trim notice for a property with a taxable value of approximately $100,000. We use that, it's easier for calculation purposes. So as you can see, the city portion represents $482 of the total property taxes of $2,166. There are several other agencies that level taxes in Flagler County, such as the Board of County Commissioners and the school board, amongst others. The trim notice that is sent out by the property appraiser's office also lists on the side where the public hearings will be held for each one of the agencies. One of the requirements is that we do not have it on the same day as the school board or the Board of County Commissioners. This illustration offers a quick look on how $1 would be allocated between the taxing authorities. As you can see, Flagler County would be receiving 41 cents, the school board 31, City of Palm Coast 24, and then those other miscellaneous agencies will have the remaining balance. I will now pass it up to Gwen.
Okay, this chart shows how your property taxes are used. This is from the fiscal year 2022 budget. And you can see the largest percentage is for public safety at 59%. 36% is for streets, parks, and facilities maintenance. This chart shows the history of the city for our millage rate and property tax values, receipts collected, and population. The population estimates are from the Bureau of Economic and Business Research website. It provides the estimates of the city's population every April 1st. So for 2023, we've taken the information and a 4.6% growth rate. So we are estimating the population for fiscal year 2023 at 98,150. So this chart is a millage rate comparison of Florida cities that have a population between 80,000 and 100,000 residents. The information for this came from two different websites, the Florida Department of Revenue and the Office of Economic and Demographic Research. There are currently 14 Florida cities that fall into this population range. And of these 14, Palm Coast has the third lowest millage rate. Of course, this is not an apples to apple comparison, as we do not know the details about these communities or the services that they offer. So next we have a chart that shows the millage rate comparison of our neighboring cities. Palm Coast has the second lowest millage rate with the second highest population rate. Same as the previous slide, communities have differences. So So this doesn't represent an apples-to-apples comparison. In closing, we want to remind the public where they can find all of our budget information. As in previous years, we have set up a fiscal year 2023 budget preparation link on the website. This is where we will post all of our presentations, our budget calendar, and any supporting documentation as we move through the budget process. As a reminder, we will be back on July 12th to review the general fund budget and trim rate discussions. And the SAP team will be back on June 28th with their council priority updates. This completes our presentation. If you have any questions.
Ladies, thank you very much for the presentation, as always. Can you tell me what the property appraiser's forecast is for property value that is not exempt and did not appear on the tax rolls last year?
I'm not sure I have that information right now, but I could.
The new money,
Oh, for new construction, I believe he said 1.4 million when Mr. Gardner was here presenting.
what was the number?
The property tax revenue would be 1.4 million, I believe is what he said.
That was not on the rolls the prior year because it's new.
That is correct, because that's considered new construction.
And do you know when that gets confirmed, when that becomes a hard number?
July 1st.
July 1st,
So
okay,
when we
good.
come to you for your July 12th presentation, we will have the numbers that are certified by the property appraiser.
Very good,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. Vice Mayor?
So one thing I learned today is that we are such a unique town. And why do I know that? Because you said it, and when comparing us to others, we're not comparing apples to apples, because they can't compare to us. We that good. Thank you.
I have no comments.
Just one quick comment. Do you believe that our low tax rate has anything to do with the growth that we're seeing here locally?
I think the city's approach to budgeting and to spending has always been extremely conservative. We were a new city, and now we're facing challenges of not being a new city anymore.
Thank you.
I can only add to Councilman Finelli's question in that the strength and the continuity of our financial performance of a city is really second to none that I'm aware of throughout the state. So when it comes time to talk to, lenders or whomever it may be, we really rank at the very top of the list in our financial strength due to the conservative approach that our finance department has helped us, weave together over the years. So thank you for that. City Manager, any comment on the process?
The one comment that I would make, and I want to basically put a bookend on how I applaud our staff. This is across the organization. Our budget process never stops. It's not a start, stop. It just goes through a never-ending process in a very good way of checking through how we performed, how we can be better, and obviously making sure we deliver the services that our citizens, visitors, and businesses expect of this organization.
Thank you very much. Ladies, thank you again.
Thank you.
Moving on with the agenda this morning. Council, if you would be so kind.
Yes, this is agenda item number 5, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, approving a land exchange agreement with King's Business Center, LLC, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for implementing actions, and providing for an effective date.
Who will be presenting?
Good morning, council members. Ray Tyner, Deputy Chief Development Officer. Good morning, everybody. This is for a land exchange agreement. Just a little bit of background and history. Jordan Myers, planner, will give the staff presentation with the pictures. But back in 2004, when we were developing our first comprehensive plan, and we were doing our data analysis in our transportation section, there's a section of Whiteview Parkway. If you go down Whiteview, and Ms. Myers will have a visual, but it kind of terminates, and there is a diamond where IT&T back in the day, I think we're envisioning another interchange for I-95. So when we became a city and we were doing our analysis and we got with FDOT at the time, there will never be an interchange at that section because it's too close from the interchange from State Road 100 and Palm Coast Parkway. However, we noticed that, you know, the diamond itself, you know, the city got the land, and we did not want at the time to, you know, have the potential to have an overpass from over I-95 to Old Kings Road. We didn't know at the time would we ever have it, would it be necessary. But at the time, we worked with the original property owner to try to get some land to do an interchange or to do a flyover on I-95. Well, you know, since 2004, a new property owner had approached the city of Palm Coast this year to say, hey, look, you know, is there a potential that we can move it to modify the area because it kind of bisected one parcel. So city staff took a look at it and wanted to make sure through our engineering division and planning and our city engineers and traffic engineer to take a look at the proposal. And we looked at it and we thought that it made a lot of sense to, you know, to be able to do that, to still keep the interchange but modify it. But with that, Ms. Myers will have the presentation to show the pictures and how it's being modified.
Just before you start, so doing this gives me a little extra ammo when I'm over at the TPO and DOT in terms of what we're doing with this process, I would think.
Yes, it will. I think we continue to monitor our transportation and our trips around, and you know, it's still kind of unknown if we would ever have it. But you know, as we develop, we do not want to have the potential to have it in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Mayor, City Council members. As Mr. Tyner mentioned, I'll be giving the presentation for what we've been calling the Whiteview Flyover. So as Mr. Tyner mentioned, a little backstory: in early 2004, the property was deeded to the city to connect Whiteview Parkway with Old Kings Road for the future flyover. And again, as he mentioned, it's not an interchange, it's just a flyover to connect Whiteview Parkway with Old Kings, no connection to I-95. And the proposal is to exchange 1.4 acres of city land with 1.4 acres of the seller land, in addition to a 100-foot easement adjacent to the proposed exchange property. These are the parcels involved. So there's 3 parcels here, even though it may look like more. So this is one larger city-owned parcel known as the rib site. This is the exchange parcel that the city owns right here. And this is the seller's parcel. As you can see, it is bisected by the city parcel going through the middle. These were the original plans for the flyover. You can see Whiteview Parkway coming over this way and looping around. And this is that exchange parcel that the city currently owns. And then this, both sides of the exchange parcel, is what the seller owns. This is a better graphic, better example. So the yellow is the current proposed Whiteview flyover. You can see it comes over 95, circles around, and then loops back through the existing city parcel. The proposed change is the black line, so you can see it would loop back on itself, and this is the proposed 1.4 acres that the seller would give us, in addition to a 100-foot easement adjacent to this parcel, so going this way. So we would have more than enough room for the proposed flyover. So here we go again, the color-coded city parcel, seller parcel, those would be exchanged, and they are equal acreages plus a 100-foot easement. The realignment of this would result in less wetland impacts. There is a significant wetland system going through this area, and it could possibly decrease the infrastructure costs to the city. As you can see, there's a lot less pavement going this way than it would be as a shorter interchange here. So the recommendation is adopt resolution 2022 approving the land exchange agreement between King's Business Center LLC and the city of Palm Coast. And this will be presented at a future business meeting, I believe the July 5th business meeting. for your adoption of this. And that's it. Would you like me to go back to a graphic?
No, just another question. So can I consider this an example? You know, we talk about traffic in the city, that, Ray, your department is constantly looking at existing roadway structures to reduce the pressure on other roadways. So I know that we're not actually doing this yet, but this would be an example of the kind of look that you do to see in the future how we might reduce traffic congestion on other roads.
Yeah, that's a great example, and we coordinate, you know, our planning division coordinates with the other departments, like, you know, engineering in this case, and, you know, will it ever happen? We don't know, but we definitely don't want to make it go away. We want the possibility to be able to improve transportation in the future.
And there may be some others too. I mean, they may be few and far between, but we're making sure that where that possibility exists, we are looking at it, and this might be a good model for that. Good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Vice Mayor, any questions?
Just that basically it's a swap. Yeah. That's what it is. It's a swap that in no way, shape, or form could hurt us. Meanwhile, we'll help somebody else, and we're still not losing anything. So I don't see a problem here, to be honest with you.
I don't see a problem either.
So what I'm hearing you say is this would be a more fiscally responsible option and more environmentally friendly.
Yes, sir.
We thank you very much for your presentation and look forward to you're bringing it back when?
July 5th, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Moving down the agenda again.
Yes, this is item number 6 on the agenda, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, approving option and ground lease agreements with Diamond Towers 5 LLC for construction of wireless telecommunication towers at Royal Palms FL 297 and Clubhouse Drive Utility Site FL 162, authorizing the city manager or designee to execute said agreement, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for implementing actions, and providing for an effective date.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. Doug Akins, IT Director, and I'm here joined by Tom Winooski from Diamond Communications. I'm here this morning to present to you with an opportunity to improve cellular coverage in parts of the city by approving 2 ground leases with Diamond Towers for the construction of 2 wireless communication facilities. It's been several years since we've discussed towers, so I thought it'd be beneficial to go over a brief history of cell towers in Palm Coast and our relationship with Diamond Communications. The first cell carrier equipment installed on city property was in 2006 when the city agreed to lease space on the top of its A1A water tower to cell providers, and that's located just to the north off the screen, not indicated here. That same year, the city granted a ground lease to T-Mobile to construct a tower off Belterre near Indian Trail Sports Complex. A couple of years later, in 2008, T-Mobile received another ground lease at Belterre Park to construct a tower. 1 year later, in 2009, the city contracted with Metro PCS to build a tower for the city at Ralph Carter Park. And then in 2010, we contracted with Verizon to build one near the tennis center. Aside from the A1A water tank, these 2 are the only city-owned towers. All 4 towers indicated on this map are concealed flagpole towers, meaning the tower is meant to look like a flagpole and the radiators are concealed inside. Concealed towers were permitted in all districts per the city's land development code, but the code was very restrictive on where non-concealed towers could be placed. Over the next 5 years, as wireless technology changed, carriers were more apt to co-locate on a non-concealed tower than a concealed one, and cell coverage in Palm Coast was still very poor. The city had heard from some carriers that its ordinances made it too cumbersome to build towers, so they were spending their money in other markets that were easier to construct in. In 2015, to try and address these issues, the city advertised a request for proposals for wireless telecommunications consulting. In this RFP, the city was looking for a consultant who would be able to review the ordinances and recommend changes to bring them more in line with industry standards for wireless telecommunication facilities. The consultant would also identify gaps in coverage in the city and assist in creating a wireless master plan to construct new towers throughout the city for expanded coverage. Diamond Communications was awarded the bid, and under the agreement that was negotiated, provided its consulting services at no cost to the city. Over the past 5 years, Diamond has helped with the ordinance recommendations and changes, provided RF analysis, coordinated meetings between the city and major carriers, managed the existing city towers, and assisted in creating the wireless master plan, all at no cost. Diamond's fee would be its portion of the revenue it makes from the carriers. For carriers that were already located on city-owned towers when the contract began, the city would still receive 100% of those revenues. But for any new additions Diamond brought to the two city-owned towers, Diamond would receive 25% of the revenue. For towers that Diamond constructed, they would receive 60% of the revenue, with the city receiving 40%. In order to receive these revenues, Diamond would have to market the sites available in the wireless master plan to the carriers. The wireless master plan, which Diamond helped create, identified 10 areas throughout the city in need of coverage, and 20 individual sites within these zones. When the City Council approved the wireless master plan in January of 2018, it was pre-approving each site identified as a cell tower location. A tower could be constructed on these sites without going through the special exception process with the Planning and Land Development Regulation Board. City Council still had final control over whether a tower was actually constructed on the site through the ground lease approval process. When a carrier was interested in a site and Diamond was ready to build, they would request a ground lease from the city for that site. If council chose not to move ahead with a selected location, they would just simply deny the ground lease. With that relationship in place, Diamond was able to negotiate agreements for 3 towers in 2018, shown here in purple. One near Heroes Park on Palm Coast Parkway, one at Fire Station 24 on Palm Harbor Parkway, and one near the city-owned tower at the Tennis Center. Today, Diamond is proposing the construction of 2 new towers, seen here in green, one in the area of Royal Palms Parkway and Town Center Boulevard, and one off Clubhouse Drive. Diamond's initial 5-year contract with the city expired last month, which means they are no longer obligated to market the master plan sites to carriers or provide consulting services to the city. These 2 locations were already in development between the city and Diamond before the expiration of the contract, and the city would like to move forward with these sites under the pricing structure and terms we have been using for the past 5 years with Diamond. The first site is located off Royal Palms Parkway and Town Center Boulevard and is Site 4F in Coverage Area 4 of the Wireless Master Plan. T-Mobile is the carrier interested in this location. City staff reviewed the location and determined it was appropriate for a new tower location. The ground lease terms would remain the same as the existing city leases with Diamond. The lease would be a 5-year lease with 9 5-year renewals. Diamond would pay the city a $25,000 site development fee upon construction, and the city would receive 40% of the revenues generated from carriers on this tower. Are there any questions on the Royal Palms Parkway location?
Councilman?
No, not on this specific one.
Just backing up, the agreement that we have with the company has expired or is expiring?
It has expired last month in May.
But these 2 projects remain under the umbrella of the project before it was expired?
Yes, sir. They've been in the works for a couple of years.
And is there some plan to renew or to, is that part of the presentation today or not really?
I'm going to touch on the wireless
Okay,
master
sorry.
plan at the end. Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
I just want to add that this location here, I ride my bike a lot over there. And on this specific location, something better not happen to me because I'm not going to have my phone, to be honest with you. On this specific area here and a little further down on Lehigh Trails going towards Colbert, you simply don't have any coverage. So I think this would be a very good place to put this tower.
Okay, I'm sorry, Doug, go ahead.
No problem. The second site being presented today is located on Clubhouse Drive and is being used as a utility pump station. AT&T is the carrier interested in this area, and have been pursuing this coverage area for some time. This site is not in the existing wireless master plan. AT&T expressed interest in this area a couple of years ago and pursued putting a tower on Site 7A in the wireless master plan, which is located on the Palm Harbor Golf Course grounds. The ground lease was brought before City Council in December of 2019. Many from the public showed up to voice their opposition to the location, and City Council decided not to move forward with the ground lease. AT&T was still very interested in adding coverage to this area, and so staff spent a lot of time looking at other city-owned properties in the area. The community center and surrounding areas were considered, but future plans for the properties, including expanding community center parking, ruled them out. Many other city-owned properties in the area were reviewed, but none were identified that worked. We felt we had run out of options for a location for this tower when a utility staff member suggested the pump station on Clubhouse Drive. Staff from the city reviewed the site and determined it met all the requirements needed for a tower without interfering with the operations of the utility department. The city then recommended the site to Diamond, who did their own site visit and agreed the location would be worth pursuing. This particular site is not identified in the wireless master plan, which means if council agrees to grant this ground lease next week, it will still need to go before PLDRB for the special exception process. Staff's desire was that this site would go before the planning board before coming to council in order to give the public a place to provide input on the location. We later learned that City Council would have to approve of Diamond applying for the special exception for city property, which caused us to bring this item to you first instead of the planning board. The way the ground lease is structured, it is contingent upon receiving all government approvals. So should council choose to approve this ground lease next week, if the site doesn't obtain approval for a special exception from the planning board, the ground lease is voided. Diamond has said they are willing to hold a neighborhood meeting prior to bringing this location to the planning board to provide a venue for public input, even though they're not required to. Diamond is planning an in-depth presentation to provide to the planning board. Terms for fees and revenue sharing will remain the same as mentioned in the previous location.
Doug, if I could just provide some input on that. So these ground leases that are before you today are pretty much consistent of the prior ones that we've entered into, but there's one big exception, and that has to do with this portion. It's an option first. So first, the Diamond will have to go through certain steps on this particular property since they don't have the zoning in place. It's not part of the wireless master plan yet. They have 18 months to go through the procedure to see if they can get approval for that. If they don't get the requisite approval within that 18-month period, then you never actually enter into the lease because it will terminate. So that is the difference between the previous leases that were done and this one, and that's why that's in there, because we have this instance where it's not within the wireless master plan and there's additional zoning approvals that are necessary first before they could even move forward.
Thank you, Counselor. The wireless master plan was approved when?
January 2018.
2018. So, have we run out of locations according to that plan, which is why we're looking at a piece outside of the master plan?
We have not. So this location is inside of coverage area 7, I believe it is. So it's inside of an area, but not a specific site identified. There was a process to create the master plan. There was a process of how staff went about identifying properties. I wasn't involved in the process, so I can't really speak to it. But this particular one was not one that was identified for a cell tower.
So
it's an area that needs coverage, but the specific site itself is not identified in the master plan.
And obviously, you haven't found a more suitable location within whatever your parameters are, whether it's line of sight or deed restriction or whatever. This is this is where the X fell.
Correct. Whenever.
So was this just missed? This particular location missed in the master planning?
Go ahead.
I guess.
Just to speak to that,
Yeah.
actually, this site is because the other one was turned down by City Council. We had wanted to go on the golf course that provided the coverage that we were seeking. That was turned down. If that one had been approved, we would not have been.
So this
here.
was an alternative to that?
Alternative to the primary site.
Okay. I just want to understand the history a little bit.
Understood.
Okay.
And if I may add to this, yes, I was part of the people that turned it down. Actually, there's just the two of us here, me and Dank were here. And in a way, I'm glad we did, because we came to the conclusion that was better. Now, if I remember correctly, there was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Vitale, may God rest his soul. He did propose another location that had some feasibility, and that wouldn't really hurt anybody. You remember that. Can you tell us why that was not considered, that portion of the property that we could actually lease to?
Sure. I believe that was the community center location, and we looked at the community center and the surrounding properties. And because of future expansion of parking, we actually had one of the planners, I believe, tried to fit a tower in that location. And because of the future plans for the site, it wasn't able to locate a tower there. We did look at properties throughout the whole area the city owns, trying to find a location for this tower. It's a very well-developed area. It's very hard to find places that aren't, in public view. But this was the best one we can come up with.
No doubt about it. We need it. If anybody complains about not having signal, it's me, because of safety reasons. But I'm pretty sure that once the public comments will come, because I don't exactly remember what property Mr. Vitale was talking about, but I don't know if that was exactly, I think it was by the park, but eventually I could see somebody in the public that will mention exactly what it is, and maybe why not, why wasn't that considered? Right. But eventually.
So, and I would just, I would ask a question. There are several commercial concerns in close proximity to this location. Have we thought about approaching them for building on their property and them entering into a lease? Is that something that's done by cities or not?
I don't know if the city itself would do it. That would be Diamond's purview if they wanted to pursue a private plan.
Let me give you just an example where I'm going with that. So 1 Florida Park Drive, for example. I mean, that building's coming down. There's going to be, I don't really know what the plan is for it, but there's a significant piece of land there, and there's a landowner. Is that something cities ever do if they're trying to locate it in favor of the residents' requests, that it be on a commercial piece?
So certainly Diamond builds towers on many different properties, private and public. But in this particular situation, since we were under the contract, it would have been wrong for us to go and pursue private property while we were under contract to pursue public property. So if we had simply taken the opportunity away from the city to pursue private, I think we would have heard about that.
Fair enough. And I'm not sure, and I could be wrong, that this represents a significant revenue stream or source to the city, but I'm also trying to weigh it against concerns that residents have with their quality of life again.
I would just assume if you built on private property, the city wouldn't be seeing any of this revenue, correct?
That's correct. And, we're proud of the contract. We actually had the city earned over $128,000 last year from wireless revenues.
For how many towers?
That was a total of the 3 new towers that were built plus the existing towers that were referenced as well.
So per tower, what round numbers?
That's about $15,000, $20,000 a tower.
A year?
A year.
Okay.
So, and for this particular case, there's $50,000 in fees associated with these 2 sites that would be provided to the city in addition to the revenue from the 2 sites.
Okay. And the revenue is dependent upon the carriers. So the more carriers on a tower, the more revenue the city receives.
I do have to raise another issue. So the sheriff, and I'm sorry I didn't do it earlier in the sheriff's presentation, so there is a public safety issue. I don't think we have the luxury of just not putting a tower. I'm trying to find an alternative, but the sheriff has made it clear that there are areas, and this area is one of them, where his people are not safe, as Vice Mayor had mentioned as well, because their service will drop out. That's just unacceptable. So we will have to find, a way forward from a public safety standpoint. I think staff is looking for some direction here regarding one or both of the towers.
We need cell all of us know that. I can't tell you how many times I've had a call drop. And for the safety aspect of it, again, our sheriff, our deputies, that's totally unacceptable. And I realize people don't like cell phone towers in their neighborhood, but they certainly like cell phone service.
So right now, basically what we're talking over here is the location, okay? It's location, if I may, and I don't mean to mimic real estate, but if my question is, I would like to see if staff could come up with a location that wouldn't make actually so many people, because I'm pretty sure you got all the emails that I got to, unhappy about it. But if we can't, we need the coverage. And if we could do it without interfering or being invasive to these people's properties or their health, that would be perfect, okay? We do need the coverage, but I don't know, the location, it seems to be the problem.
If I may, we would like this opportunity to move forward to be able to address those concerns. You mentioned that you'd received quite a number of calls and emails that we were provided some of the information on those. Those are things that we can address through the neighborhood meetings and through the zoning, the special exception meeting. It will provide property appraisals, health and study reports, photo simulations, everything necessary for people to make a proper decision. And if it fails, then the option is no longer we walk away and find another spot. But this would give us the feeling that we can go forward with this, with spending the money on the appraisers and the experts to bring in to actually answer those questions rather than have a general speech of, well, it doesn't really work. This will give us the opportunity to do it in a public forum and address those concerns directly.
When do you anticipate your public meetings would begin?
We were hoping to actually be on the agenda in late July. That was our plan, was to file and have that neighborhood meeting.
And how will the public be noticed about the public hearings?
Through the proper public fashion. There is a mailing that goes out within a specified radius. There is a public printing in the newspaper, I believe, as part of that special exception process. We were also, part of that mailing is once we have that mailing list, we would put it out to have a neighborhood meeting where we can have that. It's a informal pizza party type thing where we can have hopefully an informal conversation and be able to address some of those concerns outside of the public fashion so that everybody feels they can be heard.
And I'm, with all due respect, so this is going to be done, towards the end of July. That's those meetings you have.
That's the hope. There's a lot to get done to file. We would actually have to file in the next 2 weeks to make that. If not, it would slide, but we would certainly have that neighborhood meeting in July.
Meanwhile, we approving the lease.
Just the lease allows us to go forward with the confidence that we can spend the money, and again, at our own risk, but it's a different.
So isn't that putting the carriage in front of the horse?
You are approving the lease.
Can I just insert something here? The lease only gives them the option to get these permits. We in no way can agree to any type of rezoning action or special exception through a lease agreement. It has to go, so this doesn't bind you to approve any future zoning matters that may come before you with respect to this property. It's just saying we are giving you the authorization to go in and try to get these permits if you can. We're going to sign off on it because we're the property owner and we have to. That's a requirement of the permit. And then they have to take it from there. We sign off on the permit as a property owner and they're the authorized agent that moves forward. And then it has to come back through the proper channels.
So we're just authorizing the first step, basically.
Yes,
And the
it's
most important
the first step in the option, right.
And that's what my question was. I absolutely don't have a problem with that.
Well,
but I
they
think
can't
that
move, they can't get their approvals unless you tell them that they can do that.
Yeah, but talk with the people. That I absolutely agree with that. Don't get me wrong. I'm talking about that they're going to inform the people about it after we did our first step. That's what I was, maybe my thing was that,
okay.
shouldn't that be done first?
I have a procedural question for council. So basically, we would approve them moving forward with this. It would go to PLDRB, and then it would come back to us again before any action was ever taken. Is that correct?
That's correct.
No, this is approving the ground lease and the approval process. So the ground lease will be contingent upon them receiving approval from PLDRB. So if they don't get that approval, the ground lease is void.
The
But
lease
this is
goes away if
approving-
they don't get the zoning.
So, but it does come back to us for final approval on the zoning change, correct?
Zoning change, that's a
On the
planning
special
process.
exception, let me just verify that, because these processes have a different procedure. Maybe Ray knows offhand. The code has a special procedure for special exceptions for wireless communication facilities. It's a little bit different than than our typical one.
Good morning.
Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, the special exception is heard by the Planning and Land Development Regulation Board. That would not come back to you, to City Council, and they meet on the third Wednesday of the month. What our requirements are, what I've been hearing also as far as public participation, special exceptions only require notification of adjoining property owners, but it sounds like they're going above and beyond our land development code to reach out to the neighboring residents, and typically a neighborhood meeting would be about a 300-foot radius around the project, and it sounds like they're going above and beyond on doing that. The special exception, just for clarification, also does not require newspaper ads as well, so it'd be their option if they wanted to go ahead and do that.
So I think the concern here up on City Council is, as you move forward in the process, can the City Council have a future option of terminating that second tower if we are to approve moving forward with a lease today? I mean, I think that's what everybody appears asking. Is there a way out?
No, I believe that's the question before you this morning, is because of the investment made by Diamond to go through the PLDRB processes, are you willing to move ahead with that location or not?
Right, so that spins up Vice Mayor's question for me again, and I know staff has been diligent, but I need a stronger sense of confidence that there is no other option. For example, we just received a gift of land over at the golf course. Is there some part of that land that could be considered? I don't know what the deed restrictions are. I need you to tell me, are we sure that we've exhausted every search possible?
In the past few years, once City Council denied the original ground lease on the golf course, we looked at every public land we could in the area to try to find a place this would look.
And they're not making any new land, so if you've looked at it all, right, I get it. Okay. Last comments. Gentlemen, you have to make a decision here. What's the consensus?
We only have to make a decision next week, let's put it that way.
Right.
But
I want to give a consensus.
Consensus. Let me see if I get this. If we agree to this lease, they're still going to be to the planning board to decide. Okay, but when was the last time that this planning board, with all due respect, rejected anything? With all due respect. Thank you.
Councilman Burkino brings up an excellent point.
Okay.
I have to say, I want to make sure that we've exhausted all other options before even putting this before PLDRB, including maybe some type of private option. In a lease moving forward, I'd love to see the city have a first right of refusal in a zone, and then if we did refuse, then it would go out to private or something like that. But we do need cell coverage. We've got to have cell coverage in the city. That's not, I don't think anybody's denying that, but we need to do so in a way that doesn't negatively impact the residents.
And one lease does not preclude the other. In other words, when you come back, it would be, you're looking for two separate votes. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Just one thing that may help this,
Yes.
if we were to insert a line in the option part of the lease for the clubhouse utility site, saying that either party had the option to terminate in the 18-month period. Right now, it already has a termination that if we do not get approvals, the lease is done. But if we had that additional clause that would give the city a way out beyond that, we would be willing to agree to that as well.
I would be willing to.
I would accept
I
that.
would feel better with that.
Okay, so bring it back that way.
Understood.
Does that give you the direction that you need?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor, you got that?
Yes.
And you're up again?
Yes. Okay, this is item number 7 on the agenda regarding the SHIP program, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, approving the local housing assistance plan as required by the State Housing Initiatives Partnership Program Act, subsections 420.907 through 420.9079 Florida statutes, and Rule Chapter 67-37 Florida Administrative Code, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for implementing actions, and providing for an effective date.
Hold on just a second. If the audience would take your conversation, if you would, move it out in the hall, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you for your help. Okay, please, sorry.
Sure. Good morning, Mayor and members of City Council. Jose Papa for the Community Development Department. Sitting to my left is the Flagler County Housing Program Manager, Ms. Devery Paradowski, and she'd just like to give a brief presentation on the SHIP program. This is something that you might have heard just throughout the community, because it is a way for us to assist homeowners with home repairs, and there are a number of other activities that are done with SHIP. This is a separate program from our CDBG program, but essentially the goal and the aim is the same. And she's here because of an interlocal agreement between the county and the city. Back in 2009, SHIP monies technically could have come to the city, but seeing that the Flagler County was already running the SHIP program before that time, it was very prudent and really the best use of administrative resources to have the county administer the program on behalf of really the county and the city. And so with that, I'd like to have Ms. Paradowski provide a presentation.
If your name was spelled just a little bit differently, it would sound like Sadowski, which is where your funding comes from.
Yes, thank you. So thank you, Jose. I'm happy to introduce the SHIP program. Because of the interlocal agreement, we do have this local housing assistance plan that we update every 3 years does have to be resolved by both the Board of County Commissioners and by the City Council. So we do receive funding every year for this program, and it has 3 primary purposes. The first purpose of this program is to meet the housing needs of the very low to moderate income households. The second thing that we aim to do is to expand the production of and to preserve housing affordability in our communities. And the third thing that we're doing is to further the housing element of each of our communities' housing elements of our comprehensive plans. So this funding did start in 1992. It happened in the wake of the Growth Management Act of 1985 with that purpose of furthering the housing element of the comprehensive plans. So what the state of Florida did is it started increasing the dock stamp tax revenue collected on deeds and liens that were recorded during real estate transactions to create a dedicated housing trust fund so that local governments can address housing availability and affordability. So we plan for housing affordability in two ways. The first is to plan for how we will spend the funding to provide direct assistance to our citizens. On the other hand, on the other side of that equation is our Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. So that's a statutorily required committee that is appointed alternately between the Board of County Commissioners and the City Council. The members are. And their purpose is to look at the policies and the ordinances and to produce a report every year to look at how those regulations are impacting housing affordability for developers and builders. So we pair the two in order to preserve and expand housing affordability. So when we develop our local housing assistance plan, we do have to look at three things. We look at compliance, community needs, and we also look at how it benefits the community. So with compliance, we do have to ensure that the funding that we get each year, most of it is spent on a construction activity. So we look for contractors and we build and fix homes with that funding. It has to be a home ownership activity. We're focusing on home ownership. And then we look at the income. So we also look at the community needs because we do have to look at the demographics and the type of housing that we have. We have a lot of single-family housing in all of Flagler County. We do have some older homes, and we have been getting a lot of calls recently from people who are worried about having to replace their roofs, and they are low and very low-income households. So those are things that we consider when we develop the plan. As far as the community benefits, when we do these, we do put liens, mortgage liens on the property, so we're requiring these homeowners to stay in the home for a certain term. That stabilizes the community, and the type of work that we do does increase the property value, so it does add value to the rest of the citizens. So this is the last slide, but when we're looking at the local housing assistance plan, the council has already adopted the incentives that the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee had voted on recently. But we also have policies, and then we have these programs that we strategize. The first two that you see here, we have purchase assistance and we have owner-occupied rehabilitation. Those are kind of programs that we have implemented since this inception of SHIP, basically, when we started in like 1993. What purchase assistance is it allows us to use some of those funds to help people purchase a home. So we used the fund for down payment assistance, closing costs, gap assistance. And then they have the lien term. Owner-occupied rehabilitation is a whole home process. We're looking at the whole envelope of the home to improve health and safety of the home. One of the things that we've done with the new plan that's coming before the council on the 21st is we increased the maximum award amount just due to the cost of supplies. And another thing that we did was we added the possibility of adding a whole home generator to households who have special needs that they require electricity. That way, if there's a power outage, we can provide that to a low or very low income household. We added two new strategies. Roof replacement is one of them that only has a 5-year lien, and that's for homeowners who are low and very low income. They've been maintaining their home, but their roofs are getting older. They're not going to be able to replace the roof. And then we've added senior barrier-free home modification for people who are 60 and up, and they're homeowners as well. And they're very low to low income. Instead of placing a lien on it, we'll offer this as grant assistance, but we could pay for repairs to add grab bars, increase the toilet heights and things like that so they can access their areas of the home and age in place. And for that, we will prioritize seniors who are on wait lists through the County Senior Services Program. The last thing that you'll see on this slide here is the disaster assistance. So there's 119 SHIP offices all across the state of Florida. All of them have a plan for disaster assistance. So what that means is when there is a presidential or a gubernatorial disaster declaration, that's the only time we can activate this strategy. We will activate it, and any money that's not been committed, we will use for this particular strategy. And sometimes the state will give us additional funding for that. And so for that, we'll just help with insurance deductibles. We can pay for minor repairs, and we've recently created a new thing for disasters, which is to help some people with rent and mortgage assistance if they can document that they've lost employment due to closures of their employment because of the disaster that's in place. So that concludes my presentation on SHIP and the local housing assistance plan.
So I want to congratulate you on your job at SHIP. I have some familiarity. I'm the former chair of the county's committee. It's my understanding the SHIP program has been cut back in this most recent legislative session, but is now consistent in it won't be swept going forward. In other words, it may be less, but you can count on what's coming. Is that a fair description?
You're correct, Mayor. In the past, in fact, in 2020, the entire budget was swept. It was vetoed. It wasn't swept, so we got no money. But new legislation has taken the monies that are collected from that trust fund and created a way where we can get recurring funding.
So you can plan more easily. Now, just to give some perspective to this, so how many homes do you think you'll have an impact throughout the county in the coming year?
It's difficult to say only because it's a little bit more funding, but I'm looking, and we don't know how much it's going to cost to rehabilitate homes, but depending on who we can serve with down payment, it looks like anywhere from 5 to 10 people we can help purchase homes.
Okay.
If they can find one they can afford. And then from there, we're looking at maybe, I think, anywhere from 4 to 10 people with roofs and anywhere from 5 to 12 people with rehabilitation or more.
All right, and the only other thing I would add, just for my fellow councilmen, is that there's a tremendous amount, there are checks and balances throughout the process. So none of it gets done without all of the regulatory work and progress and permitting, and also the homeowner, or in the sale program, the renter makes commitments as well. So there's no gaming of the system. In other words, the money goes where it's intended to. It has been my experience.
It has been like that for a while. Since I've been here, I noticed that. I just only have one question, and this is only curiosity. This local housing assistance, better known as SHIP program, is that the same all over Florida? And I'll give you an example. Is that the same in Orlando as it is in Mar-a-Lago?
No, in fact, some communities only use, it depends on the size of the population, so we do it locally. So we get an allocation specifically for the city of Palm Coast and for Flagler County, and we create this plan based on our own specific local needs. So there might be different things everywhere you go.
Okay, so it's different from town to town, city to city.
It is, yes.
Thank you.
Questions?
Just one quickly, and I'm not sure who the right person to ask this to is, but does code enforcement ever provide this information to homeowners when they notice that, the roof is in disrepair and they may meet the qualifications to kind of bridge those things together?
That's happened in the past, yes, sir, where code has had to issue, but they would inform the homeowner of a program that might be able to help assist. Of course, they would have to qualify income-wise and everything. Between the CDBG program and the SHIP, hopefully there will be some assistance provided.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions? Very good. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we move on to, I think, our final presentation, which is hardening facilities.
So yes, good morning. I'm here to just give Mayor and Council an update on where we are with our safety improvements. I know back in April you were given an update, and this is just a continuation of that update to kind of summarize where we are with specific items within that safety improvement plan. That City Hall security and safety plan, specifically for this facility, was done in conjunction with a consultant, city staff, and sheriff staff to identify security and safety concerns to address disgruntled citizens, theft, burglary, and active assailant threats. So there's several items identified as high priority items. Many of these have already been completed and implemented, such as automatic entrance doors, adding screening for community wing visitors, to address the camera line of sight coverage, and some additional cameras were added. Some items that are underway were to secure areas of the building and staff from the public. We're currently working with a design consultant to put together some construction drawings that we could then go construct in next fiscal year's budget. The security checkpoint, that was looking at creating a more, I guess, accessible space for the sheriff deputy that resides here at City Hall, and then to review and analyze the guard and security contract to evaluate where we stand with that contract. Future items, review parking lot lighting. We want to verify that, we have the proper illumination, foot candle lighting levels through areas of the parking lot. Because it's utilized at off hours by some of staff members. And then that may result also in adding some additional cameras in addition to the ones that have already been added. So the plan is moving forward. This is just here to give you an update on the status of those, that it is something that is a work in progress. So there's no action that needs to be done at this time. This is just to brief you and give you an update.
Any direction that you're looking for, you're good?
None at this time. There may be when we move forward to construction, depending on the dollar value, if it needs to come back to council or not.
Okay.
No direction at this time.
In addition to safety, people's safety, is there any other upside to this expense? In other words, does it make our city facilities more valuable or more lendable, or?
It just creates more security and safety for the staff that's here.
Okay.
It may help in one area of the building where HR is and the BAC staff, and also that's our economic development staff is over there. It's going to create a more user-friendly, accessible counter for the public when they do come in. So
Not a perk, but a more enjoyable workplace. Okay.
Correct.
All right,
And
very good.
it's going to create a better location for the sheriff deputy as well, and we're going to add some glass and give him a better line of sight and whatnot, more accessible to get into the building when he's here if he needs to react to anything.
If it's for safety, it's for me. The only thing I probably would change a little bit was that the word safety hardening. I don't know if we should use the word hardening. I probably should use the word enhancement, safety enhancement. And as to disgruntled citizens, maybe we should use unhappy citizens or overly concerned citizens. I don't know. It's just a matter of semantics over here, because I don't know about disgruntled citizens, because we've had plenty of that. I don't know, calling them disgruntled probably is going to be worse than.
Right, we're just trying to protect the public access points of the building is really what it's about, so.
I don't know, we could call it people that.
How about if we stick with friends and neighbors?
There you go.
There you go.
Councilman, any other questions? Very good. Thank you for your presentation. We now move to the agenda item, which is final public participation for today. Any member of the public like to address City Council on an item not previously spoken about? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Silvia Puglisi, and thank you for letting me speak. I am speaking today on behalf of our homeowners association in total opposition to the Clubhouse Diamond Cell Tower, which is going to be very close to our homes. We have 38 units in our homeowners association. I am the president of the association, and I'm representing all the owners. Many of them were here, and they have left. They're elderly. The meeting was too long for them. I am also speaking on behalf of the Lake Forest Association, whose elderly members were sitting here next to me, and they have left as well. They have 53 units there, and they're really concerned about the tower being so close. They're gonna have the towers next to those building 3 and the others around it. We are concerned that the towers are, could be a health hazard, first of all, for all of us, 24/7 under the towers. Also will totally decrease the value of our properties around that area. It shows that the city needs to have to change a special exemption on the master plan. ITT created the master plan because we are surrounded by residents there. These towers belong on parkways. Perfect, on a parkway. Clubhouse Drive is a drive, it's not a parkway. They belong on some industrial parks, on some commercial, like you suggested, Mr. Mayor, but not on a narrow drive in the middle of all our homes. We're surrounded by homes. Already in 2021, Engineer Vitali and all the Protect Palm Coast members, I am one of them, we oppose the installation of the towers next to homes on Covington Park and the Oaks. Also, they were affecting the Cold Place residents, and we successfully opposed it with legal team. It was very costly to all of us. The city should not take us up into having to go to legal teams. They should be understanding of our quality of life. We requested with many emails, and I have some emails here, copies of those people that are so concerned about our health and the value of our homes. Is very important. Originally, when Mr. Vitale proposed the tower, was proposed no in the community center like was said today. No, was east of the community center on the linear park in the middle of the Palm Coast Parkway, where there are no homes and that cannot be seen from anywhere. So please, we beg you respectfully, do not approve this, because if you send it to the PLDRB for approval, they are a rubber stamp. They approve anything that they are presented with.
Thank you for your
so very
comment.
much.
Any other members of the public like to address City Council at this time?
Ed Fuller, Palm Coast. I would like to commend Carl Cody and his staff, and Denise Bevan and Lauren Johnson, and all the people associated with the community center. And this has to do with the safety on Cimarron. There have been numerous meetings over there, and they have been more than accommodating as far as organizing, presenting, and just outright listening to all our citizens at the community center. As you know, it's a diverse group. We have, everyone has differing opinions, and I must say Carl Cody went above and beyond what human imaginable as far as patience go, is listening to everyone and taking in all the comments that were given. Also, I do want to ask, and I don't know if I can get this information, if it's fair to say on the presentation was there are no legal impediments on making any improvements on that Cimarron project, on the feasibility study. If I'm correct in that, please let me know. And if I am not, or if I am, it would be easier to sell most of the people on Cimarron that there aren't, you know, you can always sue, but if they have the right by easement, that would be really easy to sell. And if we can have something in writing that says, look, they're going to replace that sidewalk and your driveway is going to be just as it was prior to construction, that would really help their understanding of what that project is. Also, it'd be okay, I know we have a problem, but the solutions are always important. Would the council or anyone have problems if we solicited grant writers for this project? There are so many grants out there, federal and state, and would the council be opposed to that, of us going out and getting it, not necessarily city paying for it, but it would be an outside 1099 contractor. They would get a percentage of whatever that grant was taken in, but that might be a big addition because, you know, everybody has unlimited wants, we have limited needs. But a grant writer would be really helpful. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other members of the public?
Mayor, just for clarification, I didn't say there wouldn't be any legal impediments to do this. We don't know that for sure, but it was more in general terms. So just for clarification, it's not any.
I think that was kind of a marketing comment, so good. But I appreciate the clarification. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Dennis McDonald. I came to talk to you about the cell tower on Florida Park. There is another alternative. The information was given to the planning department by Mr. Vitale. I got a copy of it. I remember seeing it. There were a number of alternatives. Vitale was one of the top EMI guys in the world. Okay, and he gave you a gift. He gave you the solution, and we should be following what one of the top guys at one time, just a few months ago, recommended. Okay, not some quick and easy deal. Take a look at the site on the information that you have. They want to drive down the driveway. The power's there, the site's there, everything's there. There couldn't be a more simpler application than to put a cell tower there. Okay, that's the reason why they're pushing on this one. I have no idea why the planning department didn't bring Vitale's information forward, but here's another thought. One of the things that came up in the discussion was the fact that we couldn't use any of the linear park because of the way it was purchased. That may be true, except for the fact of what you said this morning, Mayor, okay? And that is, the sheriff says it's a safety issue. Safety is a way to get around that, okay? You can you can use it if there's a safety situation. So let me just close out by saying that in being here, I heard a little bit of what's going on with Cimarron, and I have been to the Cimarron meeting with my wife, for school board issues when it was held up in the recreation center. There is another alternative that has not been planned or presented, okay, that you could use to solve your problem on Cimarron. I don't know about any of the other streets. I haven't looked at them, but it's a construction method that can be applied there. I believe that it would be less expensive and useful to everybody. So if you'd like to talk about it, I would be glad to talk with you about it. And I think it's a really good, solid solution. I'm surprised that it hasn't come up, but I'll talk with you. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for your comment. Last call. Any other members of the public would like to comment to City Council at this time? Seeing none approach, I will close this section of the agenda, public comment, and we move to comments by City Council. If I may, I'll go first. I have attended I've been appointed, you all appointed me to serve on the School District Oversight Concurrency Committee. I have attended the first meeting, and I was elected chair of that committee. We have a second meeting scheduled for July the 8th. And Jason, I need to call on you just for a minute here. I'm at a loss on how to update my fellow city councilmen on when we will need direction to take back to the Oversight Committee. Can you help us with that just for a second?
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, Jason DiLorenzo, Chief Development Officer. Yes, Mayor, I think really you have a few ways you can do it. If you'd like, at a workshop, we can present the current status of, let me see, put it another way, the adopted ILA's current status, and the county's proposal for a new ILA. And staff can give a presentation on both of those, and you can provide direction if you'd like it that way. Or following your next meeting, we could see where the Oversight Committee lands, and then we could bring both written ILAs back for consideration and a selection of one of them.
So let me chew on that a little bit. The one thing I would ask with city manager's consent is I'd like you to reach out to each city council member and at least give them a very, a top level summary on the two proposals that have been presented by the working group to the committee so that our city council is up to date. Fair enough?
If I could just input something here. According to the correspondence I received from the county, they're expecting that the Oversight Committee, when it reconvenes on July 8th, they're going to report back on what the discussions were with their respective governing bodies. So that's just kind of what the expectation is at that July 8th meeting.
So the good news is, since I'm the chair, I'm setting the expectations. So my purpose here is to find the quickest and easiest way for you to bring city council members up to date so that we can form an opinion that then I can take back. And again, I'm serving also with Councilman Klufas, so we're publicly noticed, so we can both serve on the committee. What's the best way to get us up to speed so that we can have an opinion that can be returned to the Oversight Committee.
If you don't mind, I'll propose this, that I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I believe we have a council meeting on July the 5th.
Okay.
And if someone can confirm
I just,
that for me.
I don't want to
Well,
bump your agenda because I know they're packed and they're tight. That's why I'm going about it this way.
We can accommodate the July 5th agenda.
Okay.
So, in the meantime, staff will meet individually with whichever council members would like to meet, and we can present the information that we have at this point. And then on July 5th, you can discuss it in the public and decide, so you can get some direction in preparation of that July 8th meeting.
Does that work for everybody up on City Council? I think that's a good, thank you. Appreciate that very much. And the only other thing I would like to mention, just by happenstance, July the 8th is also going to be our first ever biggest food-a-thon to raise that $1 million worth of food for all of Flagler County to make sure that no belly gets unfed for the balance of this entire year. So I won't tell you how much we've got or where we're going. It'll be a surprise, but stay tuned. Any other council members like to comment at this time?
Yes, I would. A few business meetings back, and I don't remember which one, it was actually Alan Lowe, who's here today, had brought up the Tunnels to Tower, making it a yearly event. And I'm just wondering when that will come back to council.
Thank you, council member. So that is part of our future agenda worksheet. I believe it's mid-July that it's going to be workshopped, and we're going to talk about all special events as part of the budget preparation.
Great, terrific.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Fuller, I want to let you know that I am interested in the possibility of a grant. I don't know how the mayor or the council feels, but if there was grant money to fund some of these projects that are, that would support and better our community, I would love to hear what those are, and I would love to do what I can to support and assist you with that. The other thing is, this Sunday is Father's Day. I would like to wish my father a very special Father's Day, and to all the fathers out there, I hope you have a great day. Take some time to enjoy the day with your children and your family. Thank you.
Nicely said. Vice Mayor, would you like to take us out?
Just one thing. Can we throw a party or can we throw a party? I want to thank some of the people in my community, the Portuguese community. We had an official, flag raising, which, by the way, I want to thank everybody in the staff that helped us with that. That made us feel very proud for those of us who got double nationality. I was very proud of it, not just here, but also the cultural part of it, which was done at the Portuguese Club. And if you don't like that food, you must be on a diet. And I don't like diets. The reason, and I could tell you, because the last time I wanted a diet, in 2 weeks, I lost 15 days. All I lost was time. So therefore, if you're in a diet, don't come to the Portuguese place. But if you're not, just come and stuff your faccia bruta, okay?
Thank you. City Attorney?
I have nothing.
And City Manager, if you'd like to close us out with your comments, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a few items, so thank you, Vice Mayor, for bringing out that very special moment that we got to enjoy here. And on the token of flags, today's Flag Day, and I hope you have a few minutes just to glance out at Central Park. Our staff did a very nice and thoughtful exercise of surrounding the perimeter of the lake with the American flag. It's pretty special, so take a peek. Also, I'd like to make a great announcement. I'm starting to get a track record for announcement, but this one's many months in the making. I'm excited to announce that the new City of Palm Coast website, palmcoast.gov, is officially launching on Monday. And this website has been in a beta testing phase for the past 11 months. We've listened to the feedback from the community and have approved the design and functionality. It has a user-friendly, modern design with an accessible menu and search bar, improved site-wide search features, simplified navigation, and very fresh content. Some pages and applications still point to the classic website, but the remainder of the pages will continue to migrate over to the new design in the coming months. I'm proud to say that the website was designed and implemented 100% internally by our talented staff. I'd like to thank them for their continued dedication to providing the best services possible for our community. So thank you to all involved in that. It was definitely an extensive effort, and many of our visitors are going to enjoy that. And then also on June 20th, our city offices will be closed, recognizing Juneteenth. And the last, I guess you would say, comment that I'd like to make is, at the last council meeting, I decided to hold this one for today, but we had a really successful job fair on June 3rd. 6 of our departments were present. We had 77 actual visitors, and we have 12 positions open. What I heard from HR of just the days after the actual event, we had 25 new applications in the queue. So it was definitely a powerful opportunity to engage our future workforce. And I believe we have some candidates that may actually be joining us soon. So with that, that's all I have. Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor
just
and City Council.
One quick thing. Today's Flag Day, and we have flags all around the Central Park. Any way we could keep those flags in at least until 4th of July? Just food for thought. I don't know. This is just food for thought. If you could leave them there until 4th of July, I think would be the most, I mean, I'm just saying. I don't know the size of them or if it's any viability there, but I think would be a respect our 4th of July.
That's a lovely thought, and I'll get with staff on the integrity of the flags that have been placed out front.
There you go. That's
Nice,
Thank you.
nice way to end the meeting. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Okay, with that, I would ask for a motion for adjournment. I have motion, second. All in favor? Aye. We're closed.